I'll call the meeting of the Carson City Planning Commission and the Growth Management Commission of Wednesday, November 30th to order. Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Chairperson Eswine.
Here.
Vice Chair Sattler.
Present.
Commissioner Borders.
Here.
Commissioner Green.
Here.
Commissioner Monroy.
Here.
Commissioner Owens.
Yo.
Commissioner Salerno. A quorum's present.
Thank you. Mr. Owen, could you lead us in the pledge, please? Could you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, the public is invited to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Planning Commission, specifically including any matter that is not on the agenda for the action tonight. So is anybody here to talk about something that is not on our agenda? Okay, seeing no public comment at this time, we'll move on to item C. For possible action, approval of the minutes of September 28th and 29th, 2016. I assume everybody's had an opportunity to read the minutes. Anybody have any changes, corrections?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll move to accept the minutes as written.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second, and with a kudos to Tamar. That must have been a beast, girl. Those were tough. Those were hard minutes. So thanks. That was a great job.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay? No nays? No abstentions? Okay. So the minutes are approved. Item D, modification of the agenda. Items on the agenda may be taken out of order. The public body may combine two or more agenda items for consideration, and the public body may remove an item from the agenda or delay discussion relating to an item on the agenda at any time. Mr. Plemmel.
We have no recommended modifications. We'll plan to take the agenda as posted.
Okay, thank you. So, item E is disclosures. Any member of the commission may wish to explain any contact with the applicant or the public regarding an item on the agenda or business of the commission. Are there any commissioners who wish to make any disclosure? Seeing none, we'll move on to open the public hearing. Item F1 is for presentation only, a presentation on the South Carson Street Complete Streets Corridor Study. Mr. Pittenger.
Just Lee Plemmel, Community Development Director. While they get that set up, just at the previous meeting, I think the Planning Commission, asked about South Carson Street, so we brought Transportation Manager Patrick Pittenger today to give you an update on what's going on with South Carson Street and as it ties into the freeway down there, and the plans for reconstruction that have somewhat to do with the things going on now that you see the construction going on, but there's more to come. So I'd like to introduce Patrick Pittenger to give you a quick presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Patrick Pittenger, Transportation Manager, Carson City Public Works. I know you have a full evening. I'll try to move through this. As you can see, the date on here is September 22nd. That's not today's date, but I left it on there to remind me to tell you that we had an initial public meeting for this study on September 22nd down at Fuji Park. We had about 60 people there. Since then, I have given a version of this presentation to the Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee, the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, who's actually funding this study, and now, of course, I'm giving it to you folks. So the purpose of the study that we're doing is to do a conceptual complete street study on South Carson Street. It's from 5th Street down to Roland Drive. 5th Street is the south end of the downtown project that was just finished. Roland is down near where the intersection is going to be, where the freeway ends. It's about 2.5 miles. And we're going to be looking at alternatives in the corridor. Right now, there are about 45,000 vehicles a day on South Carson Street, a very important economic corridor in the city. We expect that within about a year from now, hoping the freeway opens up in June of next year, we'll see what happens with the weather, but after the freeway opens, it is expected that we'll lose about 20,000 vehicles a day off of South Carson Street. So we're talking about going from 45,000 cars a day to 25. And for reference, that's less cars than we have today on Fairview Drive between the freeway and Solomon. Given that, both Carson City and the Nevada Department of Transportation agreed that the current road, which is in some places 85 to 90 feet wide and 7 lanes, is not needed. It's expensive to maintain and not needed for that amount of traffic, which won't be coming back after the freeway opens. So we're looking for this initial stage to engage the community and businesses in, like I said, just a conceptual planning level study of what could become of that corridor. The complete street is in the name of the study. It's a complete street corridor study. The good news is that since we first gave this presentation, Carson City opened its first complete street project, the downtown project. That's one example of a complete street, and I'm going to talk about how it accommodates pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and also transit riders. Downtown Carson City is a different place these days, and indeed we have wider sidewalks for the pedestrians, we have bike lanes, we have a bus stop right in front of City Hall, and we're still accommodating the vehicles, of course. We make it safer to cross the street, to get to the commercial areas, but also to benefit the vehicle traffic as well. There are safety aspects for the vehicles and also the movement of those vehicles as well. But I want to make sure I reiterate that while what we did downtown is a complete street project, that's not the only type of complete street. There are a lot of different options out there when you are implementing these concepts. When the road transfers to the city agreed in 2004 to accept that road. What was recently done as an amendment was that the city agreed to take the road when the freeway opens, even though it's not technically done yet. An interchange will not be constructed at this time. So technically, NDOT is not done with the freeway, but it is opening the traffic. So a further amendment was passed stating that we would accept South Carson Street and actually Snyder Avenue following the opening of the 90 days after the opening of the freeway to traffic. We will accept it. And very importantly, NDOT had originally agreed to do a $5 million+ project to rehab the pavement on the road there. But like I said, we agreed that rehabbing a pavement on a road that's frankly going to be too wide a year from now wasn't in the best interest of anyone. So NDOT did about $1 million worth of work this year to maintain that road and keep it alive for a few years. And we'll be transferring $5.1 million to the city when the road transfers to us. The city will be required to use that $5.1 million only on that section of road, can't be used anywhere else in the city, to implement a complete streets project that will have those positive safety elements as well as pavement rehabilitation as well. Let's see. I'm going to let this fill in. Oops. Oh, go back. Okay. So the red line on there shows the freeway extension that is under construction right now, moving right along. I won't go into details on that, but they're doing a great job getting it in there. The blue line shows the extent of the study that I'm discussing today. I want to point out, just to be clear, the city already owns the portion of Carson Street north of Fairview. So while we're doing the study from 5th down to Rowland, the money that is being transferred to the city can only be used south of Fairview. If another funding source isn't found, we'll be doing a project only south of Fairview, but we thought it most appropriate to do the study all the way up to 5th, because at some point we are going to have to do that section between 5th and Fairview, and we're not looking to leave an orphan section out there between two completed projects. Once again, there's no standard design for a complete street. It can have sidewalks, it could have bike lanes, it could have a separated bike path completely. It doesn't have to be bike lanes. And even with bike lanes, there are different types of options. And there are options with sidewalks too. There may or may not be transit service along the corridor, but also there are important things about access to look at maintaining access to businesses. There may or may not be a median. Some complete street projects actually do include a median island, whereas the one that we did downtown actually removed the median island. Sometimes there are roundabouts, but not necessarily. But often there are aesthetic improvements with landscaping, street furniture, and the like. And this corridor that we're looking at is really built to be a U.S. highway, and it has functioned well as a U.S. highway for a long time. But there are definitely shortcomings out there, such as lighting, such as if you're on Sonoma or Colorado or Road Street trying to enter onto Carson Street, making a left turn is quite an undertaking. There are no crosswalks on Carson Street between Kuntz and Fairview, not a one. And unfortunately, we have had pedestrian fatalities in the corridor in the evening. So obviously, safety is something we definitely want to address. Now, we're not asking questions today, but we did ask these questions when we did our public meeting. We had a little electronic polling, little remotes people could hold in their hands. And I'm going to just show you the results that we had of the polling there. So what's the priority of South Carson Street? Walking, biking, automobile is still number one, and that nobody's denying that. Still gonna have 25,000 cars a day there. And it's not that we don't want to accommodate other modes, but we absolutely realize the need to make sure that vehicles move appropriately in the corridor. What should the vehicle priority be? This is important in that vehicle access to business was preferred much more over the vehicle mobility, which is driving quickly through the corridor. If you're making a longer distance trip, you're going to be using the freeway to go, say, from Minden to Reno. So it's very important that we maintain access to the businesses and make sure that we are business friendly in our approach here. Which safety improvements are most important to you? And we did have several different options here because these are all valid ways to make improvements. The number one was the intersection improvements. At signalized intersections, there are multiple signalized intersections. That was the number one, but you can see that we did get a fair amount of responses for the other ones, including the potential for roundabouts. I'll just say for the record, no one's suggesting that we take out signals and put in roundabouts, but there might be another location where one may be appropriate. And while I know that there aren't that many roundabouts in Carson City, the rule of thumb for roundabouts is that they reduce crashes by 50% and they reduce fatalities by about 90%. And they have huge benefits nationwide and actually internationally as well. How important is that lighting be provided? As you can see, over 90% of the people said it was either medium or high importance for improved lighting. Happy to see that was there. The importance of upgrading the existing streetscape, things like landscaping, furniture, meaning like benches and the like. It was, medium importance was the highest, with high importance as well. And once again, just to be clear, no one is suggesting that there will be a street cross section like downtown. It would be a different type of cross section and different type of approach. But there are still some opportunities for improvements along the corridor. Walkability. There are some challenges for walkability. The picture on the right is indeed the corridor that we're talking about here. The one on the left was taken somewhere else, but on the right it's there. And indeed, it's one of those corridors that, professor once told me many years ago, it's one of those places that where if you're driving and you see somebody walking, you pretty much feel sorry for them and you wonder why they're walking there at the current time. But, things are about to change. What's your opinion of the general opinion on the walkability of South Carson Street? As you can see, more than 3/4 of people said it's either walkable in isolated areas or not very walkable in this corridor, and I would agree with that. And that did make some improvements this year, but discontinuous sidewalks and inconsistencies out there for sure, along with the high speed and high volumes of the vehicles. How important is walkability along there? Medium importance was the most frequent response. It was pointed out to us that some of the businesses there are not walking oriented. We understand that, but there are definitely some that would benefit from some walkability there, as well as just people walking for the sake of walking. What would get you to walk more? This was a little bit interesting to us. We like to focus on concrete and building things here at Public Works, but actually the highest response by far was the attractive streetscape with trees, benches, and other amenities, fairly common with complete streets projects. This is the slide about bikeability. Once again, there are a lot of options here. The upper right picture shows something that is obviously not very conducive to bicycling. But on the left, you see one that has a picture of someone in a bike lane, which is one option. Another one in the lower right here is when you have a separated path where you have both directions of bike travel on the same side of the road. I'll just mention that another option is buffered bike lanes. There's a 3-foot passing rule now, and a lot of folks, not just in other places, have gone to having a bike lane, but also having a 3-foot or more kind of hashed out area that separates the bikes from the cars. This question was about the opinion of the current bikeability of South Carson Street. The most frequent response was not very bikeable, about 2/3 of the votes. I actually do ride my bike there, and I admit that I ride on the sidewalk on one side of the road. It's not very conducive to bicycling now. How important is it? Interestingly, it was listed as high importance. Our goal is to make connections here with other roads. We do have other roads that connect with Carson now that do have bike lanes. We'd like to connect further to the north, and actually NDOT, as part of the freeway project they're building now, they're building sidewalk on the east side of the road, and they're building a multi-use path on the west side of the road in their current construction area there. So there's going to be a very nice path built by NDOT as part of the project. This was a question to find out who we had in our audience, and indeed, we got people that say they don't ride much because it's dangerous, or they don't plan to ride, but there is a fair amount that ride primarily for recreation and exercise. And what would get you to ride more often? And this is actually interesting to us, is that bike paths separated from the roadways. One of the challenges we face is that we do have different types of bicyclists out there. You've got the hardcore riders that are going to ride wherever they're going to ride, and they want to be on the street. But there was a prevalence of people that wanted to be separated from the roadways, which we understand as well. Next steps. So the consultant under contract, Kimley Horn, the lower left corner there, they're under contract with us under Campo to work with city staff. Right now, they're taking the comments they got and comments they got from city staff as well, engineering and transportation staff, and they're developing 2 conceptual cross sections. So for example, is there a median? Is there not a median? Is it bike lanes? Is there a greenway with a path down it, just down one side instead? Those are all options. And indeed, they're looking at other concepts that have nothing to do with what does the cross section look like. For example, what do you do with the intersection of Sonoma and Carson? There could be improvements there regardless of what the cross section of the road is. We're hoping to have another public meeting with some concepts to show the public in January or February, and we'll get the conceptual design, this conceptual study done in spring. Once again, hopefully the freeway opens in June or so. We'll get the traffic to shift. We'll count the cars, make sure that our forecasts were reasonable to what we had there, and then we'll move on to a design phase where we'll actually that's where you actually look at specifics of where different turn pockets would be, or exactly what widths would be, much like we did for the downtown study. And that's where it'll be more expensive, but a lot of design work will take place there. South Carson Street, the frontage road, and Snyder will all transfer to the city, as I mentioned previously. And then, per the agreement we have with NDOT, construction needs to be underway by 2019. And I think that was it, indeed. And I will take any questions.
Just curious, is there already plans for how you're going to work that frontage road in, or would that become a real nice bike lane, or?
Well, no, and that's why we hire really good consultants, because we really didn't have an answer for that going into this at all. And it is a challenge because while there is some real estate out there that's not being well used, the frontage road does serve a purpose. It provides an opportunity for all those businesses there that we want to make sure we serve to have access, but then condenses those access points into just several along the frontage there. So that is serving a purpose, but On the other hand, if you go to where Sonoma meets the frontage road, which meets Carson, it's a very awkward intersection. So the answer is not directly no, we don't expect it's going to be a big bike lane, because we still need to serve those businesses. But there are some options out there where you could use primarily the western portion of what is the road now and possibly combine those islands that are out there now between the frontage and Carson with another facility that runs along the road there.
Yeah, so if we had fairly easy access, if that's where you wanted to go, is to those businesses, it'd be nice from Fairview or whatever, you can just get on there and just stay there for the businesses.
Well, yeah, and like I said, we haven't gotten to that point yet, but it is challenging, especially with what used to be the National Guard facility there, and making it work when you get to Colorado and Fairview. It's a challenge.
Any other questions for Mr. Pittenger? No? Thank you very much. Very informative. Okay, moving on to the next item, item F2, SUP-16-103 for possible action. To consider a request for a special use permit from Yesco Outdoor Media, property owner Herman Bauer, and the H&E Trust for an existing billboard on property zone general commercial located at 4440 Highway 50 East, APN 008-281-11. Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The request is for a special use permit for a billboard. The subject property is on the north side of Highway 50. The billboard's been at this location since 2006. The regulations on billboards are in Section 4.8 of our development standards, and these include regulations regarding size limits, zoning requirements, spacing requirements, lighting requirements, and the like. The subject billboard does comply with all of these requirements. Per Section 4.83 of the development standards, the special use permit is good for 5 years. So it expires at the end of 5 years, and the applicant has to apply for another special use permit. So although this has been there for 10 years, another 5 years has expired, so it's before you today. You did receive 2 letters in your packet, and I was able to visit with both of those homeowners. One is regarding the lighting. Actually, the pictures I'm going to show you are really interesting in terms of lighting, because this is the west side of the sign, and you can see the light source. But then when we go to the east side of the sign, you can see it's shielded. So we're recommending, and being in the field, not surprisingly, you can see the light source on the west side, but not on the east side. So we've asked Yesco if they would be willing to put the same shields that exist on the west side of the sign onto the east side of the sign. They said, yes, no problem. So I think we can solve that lighting issue. In terms of the view issue, and Mr. Wickstead is here. Mr. Wickstead's home is... Do I have an arrow? Yeah, there it is. Okay, is this home right here? So you'll see the back of the home faces to the south. This is a sliding glass. I keep losing my arrow, sorry about that. This is a sliding glass door here. So if you sit at the dining room table and you look out the sliding glass door, whereas you maybe would have had a view of the mountains, you see this billboard that's been there, in fairness, for 10 years. You also have an 8-foot fence. I would also note that the subject property, which it's right here with the blue, it's actually not even behind that portion of the house. That's a different property right here. This property could also develop. You can see it's very underutilized. They could build a building there that would have the same effect as the billboard. So although I did appreciate Mr. Wickstead showing me the issue with the view, staff isn't recommending any conditions that would be different than what was in the staff report based on that observation. If you go in the backyard, it is an unimpeded view to the west, because I did go in the backyard. But I am making the recommendation on the lighting, and the Yesco has agreed to that. So the staff report has reviewed the findings required for a special use permit, and we have made those findings in the affirmative. We are recommending approval with the added condition that the lighting located on the west side of the sign be shielded similarly to the to the lighting on the east side. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Sullivan? Okay, is the applicant here? Would you like to address this?
I'll be brief.
No, put-
My name is Mike Helm with Yesco Outdoor Media at 1605 South Gramercy in Salt Lake City, Utah. I did get the email from Kathy Green about shielding the lights, and I can have our operations people go out and put those on. Hopefully that helps. If there's anything else that you think may need to be done, I'm happy to listen.
Okay. Have you received a copy of the staff report?
No, I have not.
Okay. Well, there are a number of conditions contained in the staff report, and
Right.
I think that generally they're the same as were applied to the last permit, except for the modification of the lights. Would you? Yeah, there should be.
If you're okay with these
Yeah.
conditions of approval, they're all boilerplate and
Oh,
they're
yeah.
exactly what you have.
Yeah, these are the typical from our past. Yeah, that's
Do you
great.
want to read it and
No,
just
it's okay.
confirm? Do you want to tell them that
Yeah.
you're okay
Okay.
with the conditions?
Yeah, we're fine with the conditions.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
The non-shielded lights did meet code at the time, though, correct? I mean, this is just something additional you're willing to do just to help out in
Yes,
the
sir.
situation. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Is there anyone here in the public wishes to address this item? Please state your name for the record.
Good evening, everyone. Chris Wickstead. And I'm the homeowner that was mentioned. I just want to briefly state my objection to the billboard. I've objected to it every time that it's come up. I spoke in front of the Board of Supervisors in 2006 and in 2011, despite the notes in the page 4 of your packet that's inaccurate. There was a statement at that time. They may have missed the minutes, or they maybe thought the Planning Commission didn't get the objection, but the Board of Supervisors did. Let me just state, I own this house. I don't rent it out. I live there with my 2 daughters. I'm raising my 2 daughters in that home, so it is our primary residence, the only residence that we have. There is a billboard right in the middle of my view of the Sierras, so that's why I object to it. Yesco is a good company. They did work with us on the fence. I'm not going to try and, mince or say anything inaccurate. I do appreciate that Hope and Kathy came out yesterday to check it out and take a look. But I just want to publicly state my objection to the billboard.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to address this item? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Sattler.
Could you hope the sign is in that lower left corner, correct? Can you point to where, yeah, okay,
Okay, this is the billboard right
right,
here.
okay. Thank you.
And just for clarification, what is the maximum building height in the general commercial district? I believe it's a commercial zone. 45 feet?
45 feet is the maximum height in general commercial.
And the billboard is 26 feet?
26 or 28. I have to look it up.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion or comments?
One question maybe for that gentleman would be whether the billboard or the billboard and the lights are a problem, if the lighting is a problem at all.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. And one more thing I wanted to say to everybody, thank you for volunteering for Carson City. I know what it's like. The lighting from the billboard is not dramatic. I can't say it's dramatically a problem. It doesn't blare into my other slider window, which you can see on the house more to the west. But I do have to have thick shades on that window and whatnot. Originally, part of the conditions for approval for when we talked about in 2006 was to undo the lighting that's already there in the yard. At that time, it was rented out by Mr. Borst, and he had vehicles there. They had lighting on it all the time. There was no real need for it. They didn't move around at night, so they turned off those lights, and that made things dramatically better. So to say that the lights on the billboard are a problem, I mean, they're noticeable, but it's more the view blocked that I think would be most impactful to us.
Okay. One more question.
On the lighting, do you mainly see the shielded side, or can you actually get light from the other side of the sign coming your way?
It's mainly actually the shielded side this time. What's actually interesting is that Robert's Motor Cars is right next to that, and his lights are worse. But I don't think he's ever actually aimed them. He just turns them on. So, a nice guy. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just for the benefit of the board, the folks who were concerned with the lighting are over here. So, and Mr. Wickstead is over here.
Yeah, well, from the photo with the lights on it, it looks like you can see it from either side.
No, from Mr. Wickstead's house, it's actually, he sees the west side of the sign, and the sign blocks his view of the mountain. I'm sorry, he sees the east side of the sign, not the west side. I can go back there.
Okay. Well, you can see the top of the light standards from both sides.
Yeah, it's weird.
I can see four
No.
standards on this photograph.
You're right. When I was at the other house, I could see the lights, and I could see which lights I could see and which I couldn't. But from when I was at Mr. Wickstead's house, it was blocking the mountain that we focused on.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
The reason I brought up the lighting, because it's obvious in the manner that they do that the flood is going to be not only on the sign, but the whole area. And it could be simply put that the lights could be on the, below on that gantry pointing up at the sign and not be as obtrusive. Just an observation.
I'll weigh in just because we're talking about over here Lee Plumble, Community Development Director. So actually, this downlighting is a requirement. So it's like that because of a condition. But our conversation has been, that uplighting would eliminate that problem that you're talking about. So I think as long as it's shielded, that's an option for lighting. But it is overhead lighting because that was their requirement at the time for them to do.
What are the current lighting standards? Can you do uplighting as long as it's shielded?
The open skies, you probably.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
Especially with the airport.
You could do uplighting in a fashion you wouldn't even see the lights.
I mean, before going too far on this, I think it could be an option going forward to have different lighting that's shielded, but maybe uplighting directed at the board as she looks that up. I think there's a solution in this case because the problem is that the shielding is not extending to the side in this case. So I think there's a fix that we want to pursue before making them totally reconfigure the lighting. In this case, is our recommendation.
Mr. Helm, could you step forward again, please?
I was going to ask.
Would you be agreeable to working with staff on trying to resolve the off-site lighting?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Got a question for
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Sano.
Just curious, and you might not know this off the top, but probably do, the shielded light probably keeps it going more down to the ground too, and not as far out as the non-shielded. Do you know how roughly when a shielded light like that is up, it doesn't spray out, it mostly goes to the sign and down, correct?
Right, yeah, the purpose of the shield obviously is, the way those lights are designed is it uses a reflector in the back of the light. So those older lights use a metal halide bulb. So whatever isn't going forward hits the reflector and then comes back out. The reflector widens it, and so the shield obviously narrows where the light can go.
But light normally wouldn't go beyond the shield, like shining out from
No.
the sign, it deflects it back. That's what I was trying to.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that we,
We're good on this?
yeah,
Okay.
yep. Unless, any other questions? Okay. Okay. I'd entertain a motion then.
I move to approve SUP-16-103, the special use permit request from Yesco Outdoor Media owners Herman and H&E Bauer Trust to allow an existing billboard sign on property zone general commercial located at 4440 Highway 50 East, assessors parcel number 008-281-11, based on the findings and subjects to conditions of approval in the staff report. Do I need that?
As modified.
As modified with the addition of the shielded lighting on the west side of the sign.
To be similar to the shielded lighting on the east side of the sign.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'd like to second that.
We have a second by Mr. Owen. Is there any further discussion on this issue? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, 6-0. Moving on to item F3, SUP-16-149 for possible action to consider a request for a special use permit from Sacramento Valley LP, DBA Verizon Wireless, property owner Campbell Investments, Inc., to allow a new telecommunications facility on a 104-foot height, with a 104-foot height on property zone general commercial located at 5853 South Carson Street, APN 009-304-06. Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This, as the chair explained, the request is on property on South Carson. The subject property is actually, it's that storage unit. If you go across, you all know, you're nodding your heads, you know. Okay, but anyway, it's at the very southern edge of Carson City. If we go south, we're in Douglas County. To the east is where the fire was. If you remember that fire off Clear Creek, if you had access to the site, you would have seen the burned vegetation. And you have a mobile home park here. The storage facility is much lower than the road. So when you go there, I think that contributes to the height. Because the pole is so high, and here's a photo simulation, staff is not recommending stealth technology. I think it would look silly to try and make that look like a tree, because it would be out there all by itself. We might as well just acknowledge what it is and paint it in earth tones so it will maybe sort of disappear and blend. But I don't think it's a candidate for trying to turn it into something else. The applicant did consider 16 different sites. Actually, when you look at this picture, the yellow circle was their primary target area. They weren't able to find a site within their primary target area, and they had to shift their target area over to the west to find a site that would actually work, where they could negotiate with the owner and come up with an agreement. The applicant has submitted documentation demonstrating the service improvement. You see two pictures here. On the left side is existing, on the right is the proposed. As you look at this, the red represents poor reception. The yellow means it's poor reception indoors, and it's good reception outdoors, and the green means it's good reception. So the applicant has documented that this will yield improved service in this area. The applicant does have a requirement for co-location. They have asked for a modified wording on that requirement, and I'll give you that wording in a minute. The applicant also is required to shield the ground equipment, the ground-mounted equipment, and the shielding should be to the north and to the east, because to the south and to the west is essentially their own property. It's part of the storage facility. Rather than using vegetation as noted in condition 12, the applicant is asking to utilize a 7.5-foot tall Trex fencing material, so it'll be opaque. They're trying to eliminate maintenance responsibilities. In terms of condition 18, the proposed wording, or additional wording would just, and this is the part about co-location, it talks about the applicant shall make the site available at reasonable cost and so on and so forth. And the applicant has requested the addition of wording that says consistent with standard industry practices. And staff's okay with that wording being added to condition 18. So condition 12, again, would be a requirement for a 7.5-foot solid fence made of Trex to screen along the north and east property lines. And condition 18, staff would recommend additional language to that condition that adds the wording consistent with standard industry practices. Otherwise, staff has reviewed the required 7 findings of fact for a special use permit. We have made these findings in the affirmative, and I'm happy to review those with you if you'd like. But we are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, and I know that the applicant is here, or a representative of the applicant. Push the button. There you go.
My name is Michelle Ellis. I'm here from Complete Wireless Consulting on behalf of Verizon Wireless. So we have gone through a lot of candidates to get to this parcel. As you saw in the original search ring, we actually found a candidate and brought it to the Planning Commission. You guys approved it in 2014. We discovered later that there was an issue on the title. A lot of the parcels in that area used to belong to the BLM, and when the BLM transferred them to different entities, they put a public use restriction on the title. So because our lease area is sort of a commercial endeavor for the landlord, we weren't able to complete the lease there, which is why we ended up having to move so far away from those parcels. We are set back about 450 feet from South Carson Street at our current lease area, so we're very far from the road. And I'm happy to agree with any of the conditions of approval that were noted. If you have any questions about the facility, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Go ahead.
Didn't we approve one that was over by the casino at one point? Did that not go in? Was that, it was a couple
Different
years ago?
applicant.
Might have been a different applicant, yeah.
Different situation, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
sure because they mentioned one they didn't put in.
Yeah.
Oops. I could have seen. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I have a question.
go ahead.
As you come up to the site down Carson Street heading south, if you look over that ridge, there's another cell tower. When this one is erected, are you going to see both of those cell towers, or will, you know, I'm just curious as to, there's one in the proximity of this area. It seems like it's just on the other side of the hill heading towards
Yeah.
Minden and Gardnerville. And I don't know if it's yours or.
I believe that one is AT&T's. I can't say for sure. If you could go back to the coverage map, I can show you the nearest Verizon facility is actually, it was the one you just had up. That's okay. Yeah, there you go. The nearest Verizon facility is right nearby there. See, it's called Minden North. We actually need them relatively close because of the type of technology we're using. It's for the data for the 4G LTE network. So the other one, visually, it seems in proximity to this area, but it's a little bit too far for the radio frequency engineer to utilize that. It would be easier and cheaper for us, obviously, to co-locate, but it's just a little too far away. Visually, I don't believe that you're going to see them distinctly coming down South Carson Street because of the way that this parcel is shaped, the topography and where the facility is located. I drove down today, I went down to Trader Joe's when I got into the city, and it was, you can't really see anything on that side because the land is low, and then there's a lot of vegetation, and then the mobile homes, mobile home park. So from a car, you wouldn't really see it. You could see the other one, but this one, maybe coming the other way, coming north, you might be able to see them both, but, oh.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Does anyone from the public wish to address this item? Yes, please step forward. State your name for the record and sign in on the sheet there, please.
Hi, my name is Dash Perkins, and we own the property that is directly north of the subject property that fronts Clear Creek. And we're opposed to this 104-foot tower, because when you come out in the morning, I'm going to be looking at that tower, of course. And I don't think anybody wants to look at a 104-foot tower in their backyard. That site actually touches the back corner of my property also. The other, yes. It's that little sliver just north of...
Right between the RV park and the...
I'm on the south side of Clear Creek. See that little wooded area just right up there between the... Right in there. That's, yep, that's me. I go all the way back there. Yeah.
That's our house.
Yes. And not only is it extremely large and being a cell tower, it's naturally kind of ugly. We checked with our real estate agent, and he said that I could expect a property devaluation of approximately 10% at a minimum, because when you go to sell these things, he's often runs into the situation where somebody comes up, sees a cell tower, and just says, I'm not going to buy here. And so I don't know how this is going to affect other people in the area, but it certainly was told that it would affect me that way. So I'm here to voice my opposition.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Perkins?
I have one other point.
Okay.
I know that property, if you can see the south side of the subject property, that's a hill going up. It seems like if they were to put that tower over there on the hill and drop it down to 45 feet, it would probably be about the same height as a 104-foot tower would be. And I'm wondering, why decide to, as you can see in the picture of the tower, it just sticks up out of that little valley there as a big eyesore, and it could almost be disguised if it was up on the hill toward the south. But just wanted to come and voice my opposition for those reasons.
Okay, thank you. And did you have any comments?
No, I think that did it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
So your home is right next to the rental place and gasoline alley and all. I know there's that little house that sits right, because I used to have a unit in there that I rented.
Yes, it is.
And that's trees and stuff behind you?
It is,
But
yeah.
it still wouldn't block the 104, obviously.
Oh, no,
'cause it'd stick up above the
yeah.
trees. Thank you. Do we have any idea what the elevation difference might be from where it's going to that other corner of the lot? No?
I suspect that.
It's substantial. I know there's a hill goes up behind that.
It's a pretty good rise.
Yeah, but but he needs the 35-foot ground clearance at the base.
You know, looking at that property, though, where it's located, would you expect that to be sold to a commercial, for a commercial purpose, or for an individual purpose?
I would expect it to be sold for a commercial purpose.
And in that case, I'm not sure, real estate-wise, that they would care about the tower. Just my opinion versus
You would know more so than I would.
an individual moving in there, yeah.
We currently reside in it, and it's our home, so it isn't necessarily going to be commercial. It could, and that would limit half the market. That would almost say that would have to be sold commercial versus being able to open that option to either side.
Because it's a very nice place to live. I mean, it's got the creek right there. It's,
Make sure you have that on.
oh, excuse me. Yeah, I said it's a very nice place to live. It's got the creek running down the side. It's got lots of trees. It's very nice. I think someone would like to have it as a house and live there. Oh, yeah, very, yeah.
Okay.
I can address some of the questions you had about the elevation. My name is Michelle Ellis, again, from Complete Wireless Consulting on behalf of Verizon Wireless. So we looked at other areas on the south side of the parcel, not up into the hill because of the significant grading that would be required, because we have to have like an access road that's steady enough for a fire truck to go on. So we wouldn't go straight up the hill. We looked at kind of the back of the parcel. The problem is that if you move the facility to the south side of the parcel, everything on the south side of that parcel is totally visible from the road. Your code, suggests keeping these things as far from the public view as possible. Moving it back into the corner there, it really obscures visibility from people that are driving on the road there. Also, the city has a code requirement that we be 4 times the facility height from the nearest residential zone. I don't know what the parcel immediately adjacent is zoned, but the nearest residentially zoned parcel is over 1,000 feet away. 4 times tower height would be 416 feet, so we more than meet that requirement. And as for the property values argument, we have data both ways. A lot of times the property values will increase with improved cell phone coverage, and will balance out that effect that people anticipate with the visual impacts.
Could I ask one question? Everybody in all the paper calls this a facility.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a facility or just a tower?
Well, we call it a facility because it is the tower, the lease area, the equipment, and everything. So the unit we call a facility. The actual pole itself is a tower. It's a monopole. Yeah.
So there's no building down there?
Well, not really. It's around the tower. There's a 35 by 35 foot lease area that will have that Trex fence around it, and there's multiple equipment cabinets. So there's sort of like large refrigerator units, and they have the equipment, and then and then there's kind of a power outlet and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
It's like a phone box. Right.
Yeah.
And an emergency generator.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments for either the
I'm
applicant?
curious possibly what the zoning is where their house is located. Is that residential or is it? I think there's just the one house there, right?
Yes.
It's, the zoning to the north is general commercial.
There's our house, and then in that storage unit area, there is an apartment building.
Right.
And then right on the other side is residential RVs.
Right.
So in terms of actual people living there, it's almost all people living there with the exception of the storage units.
Gotcha.
Kimberly Perkins, sorry.
So there's an apartment building in the storage unit complex?
Yeah, it's right on our fence line, right where those trees are. There's, I don't know how many units are actually living in there, but
There's an
it's.
apartment behind the office that they live in, I think.
And there's a house down at the very bottom, between those two.
There's an office above the apartment above the main office, and then there's another building
Right, behind.
with the apartments, right,
There's an apartment behind too.
on their unit, and on their property, right. In fact, they're going to even be closer to the tower.
Yeah, if you go right, I used to have a unit in there. If you go right behind the apartment, as you come into that first row, there's a small apartment building, people living in, and then there's the boat storage and that, and the covered area right behind it. It's open to put boats and RVs in, and then there's all the storage units as well.
Exactly.
So right behind the office, I think it's a 2-story too, isn't it?
It
That little
is.
apartment, yeah.
And I believe that's all our landlord's property as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it all belongs to storage.
It is zoned general commercial, correct? Okay. Okay, I don't have any other questions, any? Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, go ahead.
And this might have already been stated, Monica Green for the record. What are the parcels to the east and south? What are those zoned? And we might have already said it.
To the south is Douglas County. And to the east is Public Regional.
I think that's
Whoops.
PIA. I think that's the tribe.
I think it's tribal too. It's where the fire was.
Okay. What's your pleasure? This is an item that is required for action.
I would like to make a motion.
Okay, Mr. Owen will make a motion.
This is, I move to approve SUP-16-149, a special use permit to allow a 104-foot tall wireless telecommunications facility on property zone general commercial located at 5853 South Carson Street, APN 009-304-06, based on the ability to make the required findings in the affirmative and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
As modified.
As modified.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Mr. Borders. Any further discussion? I would like to state that as much as I can appreciate the Perkins issues, I think that federal law is somewhat restricting on how a community can react to telecommunications facilities, and absent any I don't know how to say it, but any kind of issue that would make it dangerous or a detriment to the public. I don't think that we can act otherwise than to approve at this point. So I will call for the motion. All those, or call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 6 ayes. Motion passes.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool place.
Okay,
yeah.
item F, where are we? F4. Another tower. Item F4, SUP-16-094 for possible action to continue a request for a special use permit from Sacramento Valley LP, DBA Verizon Wireless, agent Michelle Ellis, project manager, property owner William Ramos Family Partnership, to allow a 84-foot high new telecommunications facility on property zone downtown mixed use located at South Stewart Street at 8th Street, APN 004-053-02. Ms. Sullivan.
Staff is recommending continuation. I would like the applicant on the record to agree to the continuation, and then it would be appropriate for the commission to make a motion and vote on it.
This is Michelle Ellis from Complete Wireless Consulting on behalf of Verizon Wireless. I agree to the continuance.
Okay, thank you. So, can I have a motion to continue this item?
Make a motion.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Green.
F4. So.
I think you can just say,
Yeah, motion to
motion.
continue SUP-1/6-094 until next meeting? Oh, and just continued.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item F5, zoning map amendment. ZMA-16-153 for possible action. To consider a request for a zoning map amendment from Janet Mello, Terry Edwards, property owner, Janet Mello, Lake Tahoe Christian Fellowship, to allow a change change zoning from single-family 1 acre to multifamily apartment located at 150 East Roland Street and 4810 Snyder Avenue, APNs 009-197-02 and 03. Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is located, it has frontage on Schneider and as well as on Roland. It's actually comprised of two parcels, as you can see on the map. Here's a close-up. The larger parcel currently has a church occupying it, and the smaller one currently has a home occupying it. Should the rezoning occur, we would not be creating any nonconformities because a single-family home isn't allowed use in the MFA zoning, and a church is a conditional use. The applicant is, sorry, I lost my spot. The master plan land use I'll talk about the zoning first. The zoning surrounding the area is, you have MFA right here, multifamily apartment. You have multifamily duplex just to the north of it, and the balance is zoned single-family 1 acre, which is what the subject property is currently zoned. The applicant is seeking to expand the multifamily apartment to include the 2 subject properties. The master plan designates this area, and it's a kind of peachy color. So these are designated for, here's Snyder, subject properties here. It's designated for high-density residential all the way to where the freeway is. So you can see the freeway going through here, which obviously is under construction. So this area is a transitional area that staff believes is going to, particularly with the connection to the freeway right here at South Carson Street, modify this area, the experience in this area. Right now, it's a very low-density 1 acre lots. You've seen apartment complexes. If you had a chance to visit the site, there are apartment complexes just to the north of the site, and staff does believe it will transition. Staff has reviewed the 3 findings for a zoning map amendment. 1, master plan consistency. As I've noted, the property is designated for high-density residential on the master plan, so rezoning would be compatible with that designation. In terms of land use compatibility, the staff does believe this area will transition. You do have the multifamily right now to the north of the property. You also have certain standards are in place for when you have multifamily adjacent to single family. For example, an increased setback of 10 feet for each story above 1 story, landscaping standards. So should this property transition to a multifamily development, while these single family homes are still present, the development standards do build in some protections for the single family homes, which I think will speak to the land use compatibility. The 3rd finding is no negative impact on public service or facilities. Our engineering staff has reviewed this area and found that there's adequate water and sewer to service future development of multifamily. Snyder is a collector road and can accommodate the increased traffic, and the fire department and the park are just to the north on Appian Way. So based on the ability to make the findings in the affirmative, staff is recommending or suggesting that the commission recommend approval to the Board of Supervisors. The applicants are here, and I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions for staff? Okay, would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Hi, my name is Janet Mello, and I own the property at 4810 Snyder Avenue, which I would like to rezone to multifamily apartments, as this area is up and coming to, be rezoned for that eventually anyway, so I would like to do that. So it is more appealing to a buyer in the future.
Okay.
My name's Terry Edwards. I'm the pastor of Lake Tahoe Christian Fellowship in South Lake Tahoe, California. We own that 3-acre parcel on East Roland and Oak, adjacent to her property, her 1 acre. So I basically say the same thing that she would say.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions?
Sir, how do you currently lease you own the land or lease it? How's it going to affect the church? Will the church remain? Do you see?
That of course would fall to the buyer if we sold the property to a commercial developer or something.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I thought I had my finger down, but I didn't see the light, so. Yeah, so we're, currently there is a church there that is leasing the building from us, but if we sold this to a commercial buyer, then he would make the choice what to do with that current church building.
And you run the church currently, correct?
No, it's a separate church.
Oh.
We used to. At one time, I actually pastored both in Tahoe. Every other Sunday, I'd be down in Carson City at that church building. So we were there for about 7 years, but then things did not work out. And so we've leased it to another church building recently.
And that church is currently active?
It currently is active.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Oh, public. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to address this item? Okay. Well, since the church isn't allowed as a conditional use in the zone, this change in the master plan would not affect that at all, or change in the zoning would not affect it at all. And the master plan already calls for this type of zoning anyway, so. Any further discussion? Okay. Okay.
So if we rezone this, and it's conditional use for the church, do they need a special use for it?
The church can continue to exist. If they were to, say, demolish the church and want to build a bigger church or to expand the church, it would be subject to a special use permit.
Okay, but the current church would not?
Correct. It can
Okay.
continue to exist.
And the current church is leasing the church right now?
The regulations would be blind to that.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that since this is just bringing the zoning into compliance with the master plan, that absent any objection from adjacent property owners, I think that it makes a lot of sense.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of ZMA-16-153, the zoning map amendment to change the zoning of APNs 009-197-02 and 009-197-03 from single-family 1 acre to multifamily apartment on property located at 150 East Rowland Street and 4810 Snyder Avenue, based on the findings contained in the staff report.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. Green.
We asked her if she accepted the...
There's no conditions.
Oh, there's no conditions. Thank you. That's right.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on to item F6, SUP-16-160 for possible action. To consider a request for a special use permit from Roger Shaheen, agent, Loomis and Associates, property owner, Western Insurance Company, to allow an extended stay, maximum 180 days, RV resort on property zone tourist commercial located at 1400 Old Hot Springs Road, APN 008-123-40. Mr. Plemmel, I believe.
Yes, I'll be taking care of this. Again, Lee Plemmel, Community Development Director. The staff report in your packet was prepared by Kathy Green. I'll be going over it for her this evening and answering any questions you have regarding this project after giving a quick overview of it. I will note that in addition to the public comments that you have in your packet that you received, there were the late information was emailed to you in the last couple days and is also provided to you tonight. So for those members of the public that turned in late information, the Planning Commission does have that. Oh, sorry, getting to this one. So this is a request, as you said, for a special use permit to allow an extended stay, which is defined as a maximum of 180 days RV park on property zoned tourist commercial. This is property located west of the airport. Just to go over the surrounding, it's highlighted here on the map, just to talk about some surrounding uses. To the west is a residential area zoned single family 1 acre. We have Arrowhead Drive up here, Hot Springs Road down here, which gives the direct access to the property and to the project. The property to the north, between this property and Arrowhead Drive, and including the vacant property on the north of Arrowhead Drive, is in the ownership of Carson City. It's property that was previously BLM property, but it's been transferred to Carson City and is identified for future park facilities. This map up here now doesn't show property lines, but the property line to the property to the east of this subject property is owned by the airport. It's runway clear zone that has been purchased in the past. This, as I'll discuss a little later, there are properties beyond that that are subject to certain FAA requirements for heights and things, but they're not necessarily the complete free zones that have been purchased by the airport. And then to the south is a mix of zoning of limited industrial. I think there's some general industrial in here, but there's some general commercial and industrial uses and some office uses in that vicinity. So that's a little bit of an overview of the property and what we're discussing. The property, I think many of you are aware of this. It's been the subject of applications over the years that date back a while, but it remains vacant. As I mentioned, it's zoned tourist commercial and has been zoned tourist commercial for a long time. This property, as you zoom in, I was saying, you're familiar with the property. There has been some fill placed on the property that raises the elevation. You can kind of see the outline on the west and north sides there with a little bit of shadowing, and looking from Holly Way, you can see the rise of the existing grade. Again, I'll talk a little bit about that. We realize there's some fill there. That fill may or may not be compacted to standards to build roads and things on there, but that's something that would have to be addressed. It would have to meet standards for that, regardless of whether it does or not right now. And again, just looking, this is a different view, so this is kind of looking from the west towards the east so that you can see some of the grade differential in that. And again, the grade differential is also important because right now the elevation of the ground is above the residence to the west. And maybe the applicant can address this as to whether that grade is going to be there, but there are conditions in there in terms of privacy that address that, in terms of fencing, and if the grade if the grade is above there and there's facilities up there, that we are able to require fencing and screening at the top of the grade. And here is the site layout. So I think I'll end on this. I'm going to stay on this slide and just go over some of the details of the project and some of the conditions. So the RV park is proposed, as I said, to have access from Old Hot Springs Road to the south. So that's the primary access, with an emergency access point on Holly to provide required secondary fire access. As a condition of approval, that Holly Way access cannot be used as regular ingress. It has to be gated and used for emergency access only. So that's a permanent requirement. That would be a permanent requirement, condition of approval for the project. That's one issue that came up. As I mentioned at the start, this is a request for a special use permit for an extended stay RV park. I think it's important for this discussion to know that, as I said, the property zone tourist commercial and an RV park with up to 30-day stay is permitted by right. Permitted by right meaning that they don't have to come before the Planning Commission to ask for this discretionary approval. So in the context of this discussion and what they're asking for, and mitigation members, I think it's important what they're asking for is this extended stay, which could have a different type of resident. Those are the people that maybe migrate south for the winter. I don't know if this is the winter spot, or maybe they migrate north for the summer to here, maybe. Your review is for the extended stay, and they would only be coming to city staff through major project review if they were doing the 30-day stay. So there are a lot of conditions proposed to be required as part of this. 64 total conditions. Many of those would be required regardless of whether this was before you as a special use permit. There are standards for RV parks. I think when there's a code section noted in there required, it's noted as part of the condition. So there are a lot of these conditions that are required just because it's an RV park and not necessarily because it's an extended stay RV park. I would like to point out, as I go through this, some of the conditions that are different, perhaps, or that are based on public comment or airport comment or just other things, because it's that are included in here that may be a little slight deviation. And also to address some of the questions at least to try to start to address some of the questions that have come up. I'm sure there'll be some other questions coming up later. So all lighting, again, a standard condition, but all exterior lighting has to be downward lighting. So even, again, where there's an elevation change next to a residential area, proper screening has to be so that light is not projected off-site. So that's a requirement, addressing lighting issues. There's a condition, number 19, for the maximum height of all amenities, so they're limited to no greater than 26 feet, and I don't think they have anything that's proposed more than 1 story. And furthermore, along with the height limitation, there's possibly some airport limitations, but that's probably much taller structures than that. Let's see, I already mentioned the emergency access on Holly Way. Again, I don't think it's a standard condition necessarily for special use permits. Perhaps it is, but construction times are limited during the week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekends. Again, that's not a standard construction condition citywide, but it is applied to discretionary permits through zoning permits. Issue that has come up a couple times from neighbors relates to flooding. Danny Rotter's here from the engineering department. At this level of design, all of those issues are not necessarily solved, but a technical drainage study has to be submitted before final plans, and in this specific case, to propose mitigation for existing flooding issues near the southwest corner of the property and the ditch along the west property boundary. Again, that goes into the detail. That requires a detailed study, and the crux of that is that city code doesn't allow for the post-development runoff, the impacts to adjacent properties, to be worse than they are pre-development, so that flood and drainage issues will be handled. And then I think let's see, and also this project's going to connect to water and sewer. They will not be drilling wells, domestic wells, to provide water, but they will be connected to the water and sewer line. And then the last, no, one more before I get to the last one, sorry. So one of the conditions, so as I mentioned, to the north of this property is park property. So the Parks and Recreation Department, in looking at their plans, has requested a condition, and it's included as number 48, regarding a 6-foot-tall, 100% side-obscuring fence, which is actually required along the west and north property line. So it's required along the west property line to prevent trespass, as well as to provide screening from the residents. And that relates to my prior comment, because the next condition, gives us the ability, if the grades remain well elevated above those where the RV park was looking down in the backyards, that the fences should be located appropriately so that that's not occurring. So the side obscuring fence is required on the west side for that purpose, and on the north side at the request of the Parks and Rec Department, again, to prevent trespass, as well as to provide a buffer between future park facilities and the RV park. Okay, now lastly, I want to get to the airport authority conditions. So this project is in the airport review area, which extends out a pretty good distance from the runway in either direction. This is certainly within that. So some of the conditions that are required, so we've reviewed this, and Tim Rose here, the airport manager, to answer any specific questions that you have regarding the airport, but I want to hit on specifically the conditions that have been included in this special use permit based on their requirements. And again, even I think it's in the review area, I think that these comments would even be valid for a major project review, because there is a designated airport boundary, airport review boundary on the zone, that's part of the zoning map. So these conditions would apply to any RV park. The project is in the airport review area, and their conditions must be satisfied. So one of the things is they're requesting is an navigation easement, if that's what they require. A copy of the recorded document must be provided to the planning division with the building permit. That's condition 51. 52 is another requirement of the airport, that all tenants of the RV park must be notified with plain language and assign an agreement stating that there is an airport nearby, and that there may be always noisy airplanes, and they won't get complaints. Again, that's a somewhat unusual condition. But given the transient nature of this, and I think, again, Tim Rowe can speak to this specifically, but I think the idea is to protect the city, the airport, from the complaints that could be there from these long-term stay RV residents. And then number 53, they do require an FAA, it says Park 17, but it's a Part 17 with the T as in Tom, Part 17 airspace study. So that again relates to this area where you have intrusions into the airspace above property. It's not necessarily clear zones that you can't build anything, but there's height limitations, and it goes to the FAA and gets evaluated for that. I don't think they necessarily foresee any problems with the height of proposed structures out there, because there aren't really any tall structures, but that'll be a requirement based on their conditions. So as I've noted, there's a letter of opposition in your packet, and there's a couple more that have been provided as late information. I'd certainly be happy to discuss any of those specific issues further with you. And I'll conclude my presentation with that and take questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Plemmel. Any questions for staff at this time? Okay. Is the applicant here, or the applicant's representative?
Good evening. My name is Michelle Rambo. I'm with Rubicon Design Group. I have a short PowerPoint presentation. So you can go ahead and advance the first one. As staff explained, this is to construct an upscale RV resort, the SUP being simply for the extended stay from 30 days to 180 days. The RV resort is allowed by right within the zone itself. Location, which I think we've covered, so we can go to the next one. Site plan, I want to point out a couple things on here, just specifics that staff has already mentioned. We do have a drainage detention basin in the southwest corner. That is designed to catch all of the excess drainage that currently goes to the west into these single-family residences, and it will catch it and take it down into that detention basin, helping significantly the flood issues that they have currently. We also have quite a significant buffer on the west property line, somewhere between the area of 20 and 30 feet, which will include a walking trail and some landscape and some other amenities in there, which will provide quite a distance between the property line and the nearest RV unit itself. And as staff mentioned, the secondary access on Holly will be a gated access that will not be used except in the event of an emergency. This is the style of architecture that they're talking about for the buildings, and kind of a conceptual idea for the front entrance. So this is more of an upscale look. There is, significant architecture, nice walls, landscaping, some significant gates. So it would somewhat like this. It won't look exactly, but this is an idea of what it would look like. All right, and so staff has already addressed some of the issues that were brought up by residents around the project. We've talked about drainage and how the project will take most of the drainage problems away from the existing neighborhood. There's been some question about noise, both traffic noise and from people on the site, the people in the RVs. Traffic noise shouldn't be an issue for the residents to the west because all of the vehicles are going to come from the south, from College Parkway up to Old Hot Springs Road. So they will not be going through the residence area themselves. As far as noise coming from the park itself, RV resorts such as this usually have what they call quiet hours, from usually around 10 p.m. to 6 or 7 a.m., where they're not supposed to be making noise. So in that point, it would be up to the management to enforce that. The residential adjacency, we mentioned before, we have a buffer. We have there will be a wall or a significant fence, and a walking trail. Some nice buffer between the two of them. The difference in height, there will be some grading that happens on the site. Some of the dirt will be moved around. However, the grade won't change significantly, so there will be a little bit of a height difference between the two from the residence to the RV resort itself. That will be mitigated through the buffer and the wall that will be on the west-hand side. So if you're down in the residence, the neighborhood, looking up into the RV resort area, you'll see a little berm and a wall, and that's all you'll see. Looking down, it's a 6-foot fence, so you'd have to actually climb the fence to be able to see down into the residence down below. And there was some concern about blight, people bringing in, the RV people, making a mess, bringing in some unsightly things with them. With the type of visitor that we're going to be expecting at this park, it's going to be, more of the snowbirds, the upscale RVs themselves. So we're not anticipating that it's going to be, campers with ugly tents and unsightliness. And again, that would be a management issue to take care of as part of the operations of the park. That's actually the end of that PowerPoint, but we do have a couple of conditions that we would like to discuss as far as maybe some modifications or eliminating. The first one is condition number 7, dealing with the phasing. Since the application was submitted, there's been some changes in the the business plan. We originally submitted with 3 phases. That has been changed. And it's kind of up in the air between 1 phase and 2 phases at this point. So we would like to modify that condition just to say that it would comply with Section 1809 and leave it at that. The other one is the condition number 52 from the airport requiring the signing of the waiver for the noise complaints. The applicant feels that there's really no way to enforce that. You can have them sign a piece of paper, but you really can't keep them from going across the street to the airport to complain anyway. So he kind of feels that's a little too much responsibility. So Plus the fact that he also feels that if people don't like the noise, they would just leave. So those are the two conditions. All the other conditions we agree with. And I will conclude with that.
Chair, I have
Okay, Ms. Monroe.
if you're ready for that. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So I have a couple of questions about the application, but I just want to hit the conditions that they just spoke about. So condition 7, which would change the phasing. If I remember correctly through reading this, and I don't remember where it was, I won't flip through, but I believe that one of the reasons that for the setting up the phasing the way that it's set up is to ensure that if the project changes or is not successful, then the interior or all the infrastructure or whatever is already there. So I just don't, I guess what I'm trying to get at is what are the requirements in 1809 and how would that change what we're saying here in this condition regarding the phasing and what happens when?
So we're talking about condition number 7, right? We're on that, okay. So so they have included amenities such as the fitness center, putting green, that are not, and maybe some others, that are not necessarily required for an RV park. Those are additional amenities for this RV park. There's a minimum, in the code, there's a minimum requirement for certain restroom facilities and clubhouse, a residence on-site for a manager. Well, no, I shouldn't say clubhouse. There has to be a check-in office, manager's residence, and there has to be a certain number of restrooms based on the number of RV spaces. So in terms of compliance with the code as she stated, it would comply with the code if you deleted the requirement for the amenities and just stuck with the 1809-090 required accessory buildings.
Okay, that answers my question. And I think that's all I have for now, but I've got other
I have
comments.
a question regarding the phasing also. So you're saying that not only do you want to modify condition 7, but you want to make a modification to your application? Because your application states that the project will be developed in 3 phases. The first phase will consist of the central portion of the site, including clubhouse, pool, office, manager's office, and approximately 70 RV spaces. Phase 2 is the development of the west side of the property, and Phase 3 consists of the eastern portion of the property.
Yes, that was, excuse me, Mike Bennett, Loomis & Associates, civil engineer for the project. The original plan, as you see there, did have 3 phases, going through the project, developing the project further with the with Mr. Shaheen. He wants to change that phasing, he wants to accelerate it. He doesn't want to stretch it out into 3 phases. But our concern with adding all those amenities into the first phase is we're still a little up in the air. You know, as an example, the putting green, we're not sure we still want the putting green, and it's not a required amenity, and we don't want to have to put it in the first phase if it doesn't make sense to. We are entirely open to, and we are going to comply with 1809, but it's, you know, just some of those extra amenities, so to speak, they're still a little up in the air as to what exactly shape they're going to take.
Okay.
Chair, sorry.
Ms. Monroy.
Sorry, I'm quick on the trigger tonight, guys, sorry. So would a more appropriate amendment to this condition be the first phase must include all required amenities per 1809 instead of just striking the whole condition?
No, because there's a number of restrooms required per a certain number of RV spaces. So when they only have half, they may want to add bathrooms with later phases to meet the additional need. That's the purpose of that.
I see.
Mr. Sattler.
Just a couple of things I noted. 21 mentions 1 vehicle permitted per recreational space unless designated as a multi-recreational vehicle parking space. So if someone came in there with an RV and had a car, they'd have to rent another space to put the car in, or how would that function?
Again, Mike Bennett, Loomis & Associates. I hope not, sir. That is not the way I read it. I read that to be that we could not have more than 1 RV and 1 tow vehicle or a tow vehicle and a fifth wheel, so to speak.
Gotcha.
But we couldn't have more than that in one.
And a couple other quick things. Someone's there 180 days, they could leave and come back the next day and sign up for another 180 days?
I believe so, yes.
And the third thing would be, with those spaces, what about, I mean, can they set up outdoor furniture while they're there, or put barbecues out behind their unit, or, I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a traditional RV park where people pull in with their unit and they set up camp, so to speak, which is typically a barbecue, whether it's attached to the rig or a standalone barbecue and some table and chairs. I'm sure the owner is going to provide his own picnic table out at each space, but generally when people do camp at these areas, they have bicycles outside their unit, they have chairs and so on.
And if they had stereo systems and outdoor speakers on their units and stuff, they could play those outside in the unit or whatever, that kind of thing?
They could. Again, the clientele that the owner is trying to attract, that would be prohibited, I would expect, and certainly during the quiet hours.
Thank you.
Mr. Order.
Yes, sir. Couple things about your phasing. When you had phases 1, 2, and 3, I don't see any other restrooms and shower facilities in phase 1. Is it all in the clubhouse?
No, we are, I do apologize, we are lacking a little bit of detail because it is a very conceptual level, but we had shower facilities in the clubhouse. We also had, you can see that they're difficult to see, but there are buildings scattered around the development that have restroom, shower, laundry facilities, so it's not all in one spot.
They're marked in phase 2 and phase 3. There are just none marked in phase 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, they would be in the clubhouse. That building would be utilized for that.
The clubhouse then is going to have enough showers and restroom facilities for the first 72 or whatever it is, sites or whatever.
Yes.
All right. The other thing was that one of the requirements was no 26 foot in height. The clubhouse is listed on the plans as a 2-story building. This clubhouse that you're showing is a 2-story building, which looks a little bit more than 26 feet.
Right. As part of this SUP, we were asked to provide some example architecture. Again, we don't have building plans developed yet, and there is a development in Red Bluff, California that is a model of what the property owner is trying to develop here. So we just use that architecture as an example, but no, we do not intend to build 2-story buildings.
Well, the plan says 2-story building. Your plan.
Oh,
It says
I'm
2-story
sorry.
clubhouse.
I apologize. I misspoke. It is 2-story, but we're holding to 26-foot height.
Okay.
Ms. Monroy.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question in response to a comment that was made by the applicant regarding the traffic, and that, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but I think it was that that traffic into this facility will be through the main entrance off of Hot Springs Road as opposed to the residential. Hot Springs Road is pretty narrow. So it doesn't look like there's a traffic study done. There probably wasn't a requirement for one. But these big RVs, if I'm imagining the clientele that you guys are talking about, they're probably going to be coming in with some pretty big rigs. So Hot Springs Road is a pretty narrow road. So I just wonder if there was any accounting done for that. And then also, in your application, you talk about, in the amenities, you list a 5,000 square foot building that will house a restaurant and casino. Will that be open to the public or just the people staying at the facility? So those are my two questions.
With regard to the traffic coming in and out, one of the conditions, and we would be required to under the development code anyways, is to provide a traffic study. We haven't done it at this time, so we'll evaluate those things. And obviously the park, once you get into the park, it's sized to accommodate the rigs. But I can tell you generally the rigs are not much larger than a large fire truck, and the roads can handle the fire trucks. So we don't have concerns there. With regards to the casino and the restaurant, that is still very fluid at this time as well, but in general, I expect it would be open to the public, yes. We haven't nailed that down yet. That's a future phase.
Okay. Ms. Green?
So you guys are asking for the, outside the actual 30 days, which is usual for an RV park, for 180 days. That's 6 months. And someone living there. How is that regulated? And, I mean, it's an apartment lease. I'm having a hard time. I think an RV park for this locations, it looks nice enough. But that is not a transient group. That is not people that are here to ski. That is people living in their place. And that's like housing. So I'm just curious as to why the 180 days.
It's, again, the type of clientele that the owner is trying to attract, they don't come in and stay at a spot for a week or 2 weeks. They come in for the season. They will come in ideally March or April when the weather starts to get nice, and they would leave in the fall. Or they might come in for ski season, or they might want to come in for the fall time. To limit this type of use to 30 days is, it's unusual.
Okay, then I have another question for staff, maybe, because I was trying to find this. We have other RV parks in the area. What is their standard? I was trying to find it, and I didn't have time. Sorry.
Yeah, put me on the spot off the top of my head, but there are RV parks. There are some that are grandfathered, meaning that they were in existence prior to any ordinance limiting them to 28 days. And there are RV parks that are subject to the 28-day limitation.
But again, there, they could leave and turn around, come back that afternoon and stay again, correct?
Just change sites.
Yeah, or just move to another site. And I'm thinking of one down on the south end of town, I think was grandfathered, because those folks have been, in there for a long time, so. And just another quick question, is there any minimum or maximum size that can come into that? I mean, can someone bring a pickup with a shell in the back, or a 50, 40-foot motorhome? Does it?
These, I don't expect they would bring a pickup with a shell on the back. These are, yeah, there won't be tents allowed on the spaces. These are RVs or fifth wheels that will be coming in. As far as maximum size, we're designing, the layout right now is to accommodate the industry's largest rigs.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. Porter.
So you're saying I can bring my Newell with my excursion on the back of it and drive through one of those pull-throughs?
I'm not sure what that is.
That's what I'm saying. A Newell is $1.5 million RV.
Oh, then yes, you could.
And it's fairly long, and if you and there are very few places where you can actually park one.
Yeah.
I will also tell you that in my experience, which is extensive in mobile homes and RVs and winter Texans and winter Californians and winter Nevadans, that, 6 months is probably too long. 60 days is probably fine. But I would have to agree with some of, a 6-month stay is just really too long for these people. If nothing else, they have to move it to keep the wheels round. So, I think there's a stretch here for maybe another reason, but I'm not sure what it is yet.
Well, from the owner's perspective, and to go back to your original point about size, the spaces are 35 feet, 32, 35 feet, and almost 80 feet long, so you would definitely fit inside one. And to go back to the owner's perspective, I can tell you right now, he is down south in the desert in his RV, and he will be there all winter long. That's how he lives. That's his mentality. And when he comes up north, he stays in this area for a few weeks, then he goes up to Canada for a couple of months or several months. So that's his mentality. He is not trying to attract a long-term residence or an apartment-type atmosphere. He's trying to attract the long-term travelers, if you will.
Well, and that's true, and that culture does that, but they typically don't spend more than 6 or 4 months or 3 months or 2 months in one place, not 6 months.
Also, in theory, I mean, someone can come in and just stay 2 weeks if they want to, or a month, or whatever. I mean.
Yeah, of course.
And if it's just if all they have to do is change spaces or pull out, gas it up, and pull back in, why any limitation? Why not 30 days, 60 day, whatever, you know? I don't understand it.
Well, explain the tax implications.
The tax implication?
Yeah,
I don't understand, I'm sorry.
for an RV stay. If I'm in my RV and I stay here 2 weeks, do I pay a tax?
I'm not sure the answer
If
to
I
that.
stay here more than 30 days, do I pay a tax? The answer is yes and no.
Well, I'm not sure if the room tax would apply to RV spaces.
Yes,
I don't know
it
that.
is.
It does. So it would apply whether you're 2 weeks or 30 days or 6 months, you're going to apply.
No, it won't apply. The way that there's an exemption in city code for stays of over 30 days. Once you go beyond the 28 days, then you are exempt from having to pay the transient tax. My question to the city is there a replacement tax that then kicks in if they're over that? Is there like a rental tax or something that would also apply?
From experience with the motels, no, there's no, as you said, the transient occupancy tax is collected for stays of 28 days for less. So technically, they would be, even if there's a 28-day limit, technically they should be renting for no more than 28 days. And collecting the transient occupancy tax, even if that person goes out and checks back in, that's another 28 days to collect the transient occupancy tax. And I don't know of any other tax that replaces that for motels or any other stays that are longer than 28 days. I don't think there is one.
Okay, I don't think there is either, but so in effect, the long-term rental would be exempt from the transient occupancy tax, as long as they met the conditions of the code, which says that you have to, if it's a lease for 30 days or 28 days or longer, then you're exempt. If they don't do the lease, then they pay the tax on a daily basis. So I mean, that's really not within our purview, but I think that it plays a role here. We have to think about, the effect on city resources and, is this what were the comments from the Sheriff's Department and Fire Department? Did they expect any additional service provision requirements here?
I was looking up did you say fire?
Fire and sheriff.
No unusual requirements,
Okay.
just looking at standard requirements. And to the term rental business that is applicable to the transient occupancy tax includes any hotel, motel, auto court, motor court, lodge, lodging house, apartment house, et cetera. Trailer court, trailer park. So, yeah, so transient occupancy tax does apply to RV parks for 28-day stays or less.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, I know that there are public here who wish to address this item, so we'll give them an opportunity. Okay. One person at a time. Each person will have 3 minutes to address their concerns. So if you just want to sort of line up and we'll get to it. Okay, please state your name for the record and we'll go ahead.
Thank you. My name's Tim Rowe. I'm the airport manager for the Carson City Airport. I want to thank you for letting us come in and give our opinions and some of our concerns regarding the proposed RV park. Just a quick correction on the study that was asked for. It's not a Part 17 study. It's an FAR Part 77 study, and that is required by the FAA for any structure above a certain height, and I think this two-story building actually qualifies and falls under that because of its proximity to the airport. I don't think it's going to be a big factor. It's just something that the FAA requires. We do appreciate the developers removing the ponds from the plans and that they were first proposing, because we did a bird study and the birds would have left the dump and headed for water. So we appreciate them removing that. There are some real concerns, and I'm going to talk to you from a pilot's point of view. I've been flying for a long time, and the RV park will lie directly under the flight path of the west side of the airport. Our primary runway is runway 27, which is 270 degrees. It flies towards the west. So our primary runway for departures is going to take aircraft right directly over the RV park. They're going to be low, they're going to be slow, and it is going to be the most critical phase of flight for an aircraft. We get a lot of noise complaints. We've had problems just recently, and I'm going to bring this up, of 3 aircraft crashes that has happened near airports, 2 of them in Reno. One actually crashed in an RV park to the north side of the Reno airport, and one crashed in the parking lot just to the west side of the Reno airport. Just this last week, we had an air ambulance aircraft crash at Elko, just within a mile of the Elko airport. So these are concerns by a lot of operators on the airport. We don't want to go down. We love an open field. If we have a problem, we want to go somewhere that's nice and flat and smooth. There's really not much we can do to stop the RV park, but we want them to know of our concerns. So departing aircraft are also at their loudest. And this is my concern because I'm the guy that answers the phones. So when people obviously have noisy aircraft flying over their homes, they know my number. So we are trying to avoid that. One of the things we'd like to see happen with the owners of the RV park is let the tenants who come in and stay understand that we're an airport and we're not going anywhere. We're not going to change our patterns. Everything that we have done over the past 50 years with this airport has been done to improve safety. And right now we have a very nice program for noise abatement, and that is to take off, climb at the best rate of climb that an aircraft can do depending on the type, and we have small single engine airplanes up to and including large jets. No matter how fast a jet flies and how fast it climbs, it's noisy. And I'm usually going to get those phone calls. But our best procedure is to fly straight off the runway to the west, climbing as fast as possible, and then making a turn after 300 or 400 feet. And so we know we're going to get calls, and we want the people moving into this RV park to understand, either by signing a waiver, that they do understand that there is an airport. We are not going to go away. We are concerned about the length of stay, mainly because of the noise. We know that we'll probably get some complaints regarding that. I don't want to go into the aviation easement right now. I'll let Linda discuss that. But I just would like to know that we can sit down and discuss this with the principals. We'd love them to come to the airport authority meeting and talk to us about what they plan to do and let the authority know. So see if we can work out an accommodation. So, Linda, would you like to say?
Good evening. My name is Linda Law, and I am the chair of the Carson City Airport Authority at the current time. I would reiterate what Tim has said, and I also am an RVer, okay? So I've seen both sides of this. I've been flying out of Carson City Airport since 1989, first in a trainer, for which I was very thankful many times that there was empty space below me, then in a single Piper, and then in a twin. And I can honestly say that as a homeowner who used to live in the flight path right down off of College Parkway, one of the things I did when I sold my house, we're all required to do a disclosure document when we sell a home. I disclosed twice in that document that they were in the flight pattern because I was carrying the note myself, and I didn't want to have to eat that note. So I understand there are some administrative issues as far as giving notice to people who are going to be staying in this facility. However, if I were in an owner's position and I expected to accommodate someone for over 30 days or even within the 30-day period, I would want them to know, as a part of staying at my facility and wanting them to come back and have that experience again, of what surrounds them and what they're going to be facing at 6 o'clock Saturday morning. Because quite often, it's little airplanes taking off from the airport, and at 7 o'clock in the morning on weekdays, it's the state jet. So I understand them saying, well, it's hard to administer. That's not the point. The point is disclosure so that someone has an idea of where they are in space. Because just because they come down College Parkway and end up going up either GONI or research or whichever way they approach it, not everybody is terribly observant, and they could drive by the end of the airport and never really think about it other than open space, and it's not open space. And as the chair of the airport authority, one of the things that we focus on and that Mr. Rowe focuses on is economic development, just like the rest of the people in the city. We want to bring in more activity. We want to bring in companies that use the airport and support our city. And I think to avoid that kind of disclosure because it's inconvenient is perhaps not the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer anything.
Okay.
One other comment I might make is to reiterate what Tim said about the developers coming to us and asking to be put on the agenda for the airport authority. We welcome that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Typically, we're not going to be addressing directly to commenters, so, but we appreciate your comments. And okay, next.
How you doing tonight?
Good.
My name is John.
Can you turn the mic on, please? Just push the button there.
Cool. My name is John Lubitsch, and I live at 1001 Mark Way. That is one house west of the western side of the proposed settlement. I'm here tonight to ask the Planning Commission for a time continuance. We received this little purple or pink thing in the mail a couple days before Thanksgiving. A lot of the people were gone Thanksgiving. There's a lot of stuff in here. I'm speaking here for a bunch of people that don't want to come up here because they're afraid of the mic. I do have 2 additional letters from neighbors that were unable to make it because they're sick. Thank you. Linda Rabel and Tamara Nance. Linda lives on Louise, and Tamara is my direct to the east neighbor. As you can see, I'm in a cast. Some time ago, I broke my left foot. my tibia, my fibula, and Henry here and I have been very good friends. So since I got this, I haven't really been able to get out and talk with my neighbors. We have had a change of neighborship in the last 10 to 15 years of almost 50% of the people that live east of Emerson Drive. That would be Markway, Hollyway, and Louise. These are the people that are going to be impacted pretty much the most. So we'd like to see a 3 to 4 month extension so that we as the neighbors can get together and say, hey, you know, what are we doing? Why are we going to do it? What's our plan? What's going to go on? When Mr. Langston had this and was bringing it forth, part of the thing that he had to go through was he was required by the city to have some open meetings. These meetings were to be with the people that lived there, and we put in ideas, questions, and so on and so forth, and they were addressed. But let me get back to what I originally started to. Some of the people I'm talking for is Carol Garrett on Markway, Carolyn Garrett on Markway, Arden Kelly on Markway, John and Tammy Lubitsch on Markway, Mike Team, who lives on Louise, Chris Shrine, who lives on Markway, and like I said, the other half I've seen, you know, wave, and I see some of them here, but I couldn't tell you what their name is. We don't think a project of this nature, giving us 3 to 4 months to do and get together, is that big a thing. I unfortunately have been kind of elected by my neighbors to talk. Along with Henry here, I'm having major surgery on Thursday next week. They're going to give me a new stomach. So I'm going to be down for 3 weeks after the surgery. So I'm basically asking for a little bit of consideration. I understand you guys got a job. Mike Bennett is a very good friend, family friend. We had a long, heated discussion yesterday. Didn't start that way, but it ended kind of that way. I have documentation, and I have some of it here with me to show that in the past the city has done certain things. Mr. Plummel has brought up the fact that the land to the north has been brought into the city.
I'm going to have to ask you to make it very quick.
Okay. I have the documentation to show that an RV park has been denied, an adult park has been denied, a casino has been denied, all of this. It's in 7 boxes that I haven't been able to go through. I've got 6 boxes that I've gone through, and I've got minutes that I can provide to you if you want them, showing that in the past this has been denied. But right now we're asking for an extension. If we can't get an extension, I would like to have at least a 2 to 3 hour window of opportunity to bring forth everything that I have to you so that you can make a decision based on not what is good for Carson City, but what is good for the entire Carson City. I have spoke with the FAA in Phoenix, Arizona this afternoon. Lenora something or something, she is the assistant director out of the Phoenix area.
Okay, I'm gonna have to ask you that.
And she has asked that she hasn't been notified, and
Well, she
would
will
like to
be.
notified. So,
If this goes forward, she will be. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sorry if
And I apologize for cutting it short, but we have to keep everybody to that time. Yeah.
Thank you, and good luck. Good luck with your surgery.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, I'm Phil Ware. I live on Mark Way, 969 Mark Way. I'd like to thank each of you for your service to our community. I'm gonna go fast. You told me earlier that 3 minutes is pretty much our time limit, so I'm just gonna hit my bullet points, the ones I think are critical and things I wish that the Planning Commission would consider. Number one, apparently alcohol is proposed to be sold on the premises. My question is, what prevents the property from becoming a hangout during low occupancy periods? Maybe are having raucous tailgating parties that disturb the peace, and that has been alluded to earlier. Restaurant, retail, pool, recreation club, room facilities on site will draw traffic over and above RV traffic. I think you alluded to that earlier. The subject has a proposed density of 5.6, more or less, units per acre, while maintaining very little open space on the west side. The 20-foot buffer is from me to you, or it's a typical garage is 20 by 20, so one side of the garage to the other is not much of a buffer. Will security be provided 24/7? Stress on infrastructure. Street widths, as you indicated earlier, we've got research when on-street parking is there, becomes pretty narrow. Gonai, at some point, has some open bar ditches. It's narrow two-lane. Old Hot Springs, to handle a significant bump in motor coach and RV trailer traffic. What is that going to do to the entry to the park? It's going to back up pretty quick, and NDOT has a facility there, including a storage yard on Old Hot Springs. Relative to financial burden to the taxpayer, I'm a little offended by the fact that why hasn't the real property owner been identified? It's alluded to as Western Insurance. I checked the assessor's website today, early this afternoon. It's still showing Western Insurance. They're an insolvent insurance company, and why would we consider the city doing business with an insolvent insurance company? That's my research, subject to verification, of course. Hearsay has it that Mr. Shaheen is actually the person shown as agent, but perhaps future owner of the RV park. And I'm just wondering why the secrecy, why the lack of candor in the application. Why don't we have, let's see, excuse me. That's a critical point for me. Environmental impact, we've talked about stormwater runoff. The entry is actually in the flood zone. There's been floods there before, certainly in '97. Y'all all remember that. But if, for example, the new drainage system under the freeway, adjacent to the freeway, whatever, the inlets are plugged up, okay, then you can see the result at the entry, and at the same time, if there has to be an evacuation, then off we go. Everybody's trying to get out at Holly. In the end, does the commission, is it in the long-range growth of Carson City to provide this high-dense seasonal and transient population directly into established business parks and residential neighborhoods? I think you can all see the the implications there for even commercial property value. I'll leave it at that. I know there's other people to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening. My name is Randy Gaugh. I'm a resident of Ward 2 where this project is being considered. And my comments are more questions just for some clarification. Number one, and I might have missed this because I did not read the package prior to the meeting this evening, but how many residents is this piece of property going to house if it's full? Was that particular issue
There are
covered?
215 spaces
215
proposed.
spaces. So it was, I'm just curious, do these count towards, because during the, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Over the course of deliberations for the Vintage project, I came to realize that Carson City has a growth cap of 75,000 residents. And my question is, does this count towards that growth cap? I'm not sure about that because of the transient nature of those individuals. But my concern in that manner is that the most efficient use of Carson City's land when considering the tax base, and I think the Planning Commission has kind of alluded to that earlier with concerns with regards to the tax, excuse me. And that was my question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Actually, Randy, could you sign the form too, please?
My name is Glenn Twitchell, and I live on Louise, and my backyard is going to be within about 100 feet of that wall. And I am concerned about traffic noise. Much more, I'm concerned about Holly. My lot fronts on Holly. A clarification to staff, if I might. Holly will be blocked for fire use only. Is that right? Also for construction?
No.
No?
Well, they'll have to have some equipment there to do the construction of the entrance, but we could make that a condition.
Well, you know, if it's going to be closed, if it's only fire, then that's my main concern.
That is the intent.
The next concern would be to mark. That abuts also to that wall. And I don't want to see any change orders to open it up to mark. Okay. Another item is that the city is going to supply water supply and sewer. Do we have a cost estimate on that?
The developer would have to pay for that. It won't be at the city's expense. The developer will pay for that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joseph Choate. I live at 4300 Louise Drive, which is just off of the map there. Some of my questions are, one of my statements in my opposition to this is about 4 months ago, the state had the biggest assembly of people opposing the transition of water rights and the attempt to cap wells and meter those wells. And there was an attempt to make it from 2 acre-feet of water to 0.25 acre-feet of water per parcel. What was the proposed requirement change for the water consumption in this? I don't have my pink sheet with me. It said it on there. It was like 16,000 to 56,000 gallons.
It's almost 60,000. I think you're talking about the average daily usage of the water.
And that's part of this piece here, right, is to change it from
the
15.
application is 60,000 gallons per day average.
From what, though?
Okay,
Sorry.
we'll take your question, and then we'll try to answer it after the comment period.
Yes, sir. Sorry. So my question is, what is going from and to is my question, because it seems substantial, and, you know, as they say, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting, so.
Okay, we are going to be addressing the water issue in the next portion of our meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe, should I clarify that now? Because I don't think, because there is a related item on the agenda.
Yes.
So the next item, there's the special use permit, there's also growth management, and now it goes to the last two comments that were made. So Carson City has a growth management ordinance that regulates the number of residential building permits per year and the amount and requirements for the amount of commercial and industrial water usage. So to answer the previous question, this falls into the commercial water usage category, like a hotel. If it was a hotel, there would be the same thing, using water. And the growth management establishes a threshold above which it has to come to the Planning Commission. Below that daily water usage, they don't have to come to the commission. So your average restaurant right now doesn't have to come before Planning Commission for water usage wherever they're located. But for larger projects that use this much water, they typically do. So that will be addressed by the engineer in the next item related to water usage. And the threshold, the threshold for industrial and commercial water usage is 15,000 gallons per day average water usage. And again, I think he gave the number that they're requesting for this. But so we'll have more detail on water usage for the next item will be dealt with.
I will also respond as a comment.
Okay, go ahead. Now? After. And you'll respond
After the
to-
comments, we'll summarize them, and then I'll explain it all.
Yes.
Okay, so most of my points have been partially addressed. One other question was, did the sheriffs and the fire department actually respond to what the impact would be with this kind of a development? The rest of these, I think, have been touched on. Thank you for your time. I oppose this immensely. So.
Okay, thank you. And as I said, we'll address the issues at the end of the comment period. So next, anyone else?
I'm Tammy Lubitsch, and I live at 1001 Mark Way, and I just wanted to point out that the application was by Western Insurance. The owner as of November 15th is Roger Shaheen. Shouldn't it be Roger Shaheen's name going on for the application and not Western Insurance? And the other thing I'd like to say is, I've lived here for many, many years. I've seen one airplane crash in that area. And if you put that many RV parks or big rigs in the thing with all the propane and everything that's there, and they crash, my house is gonna blow up too. And I'm not really impressed with that. That area should be left open, and it should have been bought by the Airport Authority years ago, back in '96 when this was originally denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Doesn't make any difference.
Good evening. My name's Eric Antilla, and I live at 810 Mark Way. And so my property is fairly close as well. A couple of comments and observations and listening to people. When we talk about tourist destination, and I'm going, looking at our hotels and our motels in town, and we're talking 28 days and 180, really? We don't enforce it in this city. We don't. We all know that. Downtown, we have people living in motels for years. We need to be honest about that. Is this what we really want? And there is a good point in that, and that is, if you're looking at 28 days and there's tax in there, then there's revenue that would help the city. But you go beyond that, another little loophole, and it seems like that's a loss. I'm also kind of concerned, too, that, you know, we look at the area, the general use of the area is, they're acre properties all around it. And if that were the size of that property, we're looking at, it could have been, and perhaps should have been, 40 homes. And the consumption of water would have been for that purpose. But now we're looking at 215? That's 5 times what the area is used to. We need to look at that. We need to be thoughtful about that. 60,000 gallons per day? Wow. I know you mentioned tents. Is it going to be written in there that we can't have tents? What about tent trailers? And people that go on vacation, they're there on vacation. They're not quiet. Why would they be? They're on vacation. But the neighbors have to hear that. We talked about a 6-foot fence. Why are we not talking about an 8-foot fence? We have a retaining wall. We have a quiet sound wall when the highway was built. Well, we're talking about a 6-foot fence to protect the people that are adjacent to it. I think we need to look at that a little more seriously. Anyway, I thank you for your time and your thoughts, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget to sign in. Anyone else?
Oh, the red light, okay. I'm John Drown. I live on 4200 Louise Drive, right at the end of Holly Street. And most of the things that I was worried about have been kind of addressed, but and not completely solved or anything, but the water usage and the so those Holly Street's going to be blocked off with a gate and not used except for emergencies, and so we won't have the traffic going through there. Am I right about that, or is that okay? And then the water usage is and if they bring the sewer and water through there, are they going to come through and then make the rest of us hook up to it? I mean, a lot of us, and there is no drains or storm drains or anything there. I mean, we pay a tax for it, but there's nothing within miles of that, or 1,000 feet or more. And I just wanted to be up here and be counted as, one of the people that's opposed to this. It's, I mean, the amount of people that are going in there and the amount of water usage and everything else. I mean, even if they don't drill a well, the city's going to drill wells. And what's that going to do? So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Rob Team 4097 Louise Drive. My issue is this fence. It goes to my backyard. You're talking about at least 18-foot elevation change. Not to mention the water and everything else, that's an issue too. But if you put a 6-foot fence up there, I don't care whatever kind it is, you're gonna be able to look straight down into the backyard of my house, into my daughter's bathroom, and a lot of other areas. It just doesn't seem right. I believe as much money as they've made to go into the wall on the freeway for the noise reduction, Shaheen can afford to put a wall there that's much more appropriate for the situation. That's my feelings about it. And I'm opposed to, as is everybody back there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Please step forward.
Good evening. My name is Carol Garrett. I live at 909 Mark Way. My concern is, are they going to compensate us in any way when our wells go dry?
As I said earlier, we will, once the public has had an opportunity to speak, we will address the issues that were raised.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then we will close the public hearing portion of this item and bring it back for discussion and clarification and answers to the extent that we can answer the questions that were raised by the public.
I have a question.
Ms.
I know we
Monroe.
want to summarize, but I'd like an answer with the summary. So, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Okay, so we heard, Elise Monroy for the record, so we heard a couple times during public comment that similar applications for this property had been denied in the past, but I understand that this is zoned commercial tourism. Yeah, thank you, tourist commercial. And a 30-day stay would be, so an RV park would be allowed by right if it was a 30-day stay. We're considering a 180-day stay. So I'm curious to know what maybe the history of the, not the whole history of what applications would be for this lot, but what has been applied for and denied in the past. So if, as we're summarizing, if we could just hit on that, I'd appreciate it.
Can I pick off questions as we go? Yeah.
Sure.
Well, perhaps Mr. Lubitsch can bring his boxes and answer the question, because off the top of my head. So it's been, I've been in the planning department for 15 years, and all applications for this property predate me. So just from personal experience, I don't have the complete list. I think the last one, there was one for a mobile home park. That was a senior mobile home park that was there and was denied and resulted in litigation. So I can't, and anyway, I can't give you the whole history, but what I do want to say to that is it really is not terribly material to your review tonight. As you said, it has the zoning on it, there's issues. This is a different project than prior projects. It was not purchased by the airport to preserve as open space forever under the airport. It's in private property, it has zoning, and I was just looking up tourist commercial, so in addition to RVs for stays of less than 28 days, other permitted uses that don't have to come before you, just to start down the list alphabetically: bar, bed and breakfast, amusement park, recreation, convenience store, unlimited gaming, hotel, are all things that are permitted by right in tourist commercial zoning.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to clarify, our decision tonight has to be based upon some material evidence that 180 days is not appropriate for this. The park itself is a permitted use, and we're not really concerned with that. I mean, we're concerned with it, but we cannot make a decision based on that. So the arguments that the reasons for denial would have to be based upon some material fact that would say that 180 days is worse than 30 days. And that's what we need to consider. So at this point, though, I would like to have staff, if they can, Danny, if you could address the issues that were raised concerning, well, actually, the water was sort of, we'll deal with that the next time, but there were some issues, there were some questions about roadway widths, and Ms. Garrett had a issue with wells. If you could just address those at this time, that would be good.
I'm going to give you some thoughts on water, even though I know the formal decision on water is in the next one. One of the questions was about going from 2 acre-feet to 0.25 acre-feet. Just for reference, this is a thought process by the state engineer that in severely over-appropriated water basins, in which case Eagle Valley is not one, what to do, because you're going to eventually run out of groundwater. And so they're trying to tackle that problem with, do you reduce all the uses that are current? Do you start telling the last well drilled, you got to stop and not have a house here anymore? Do you reduce agriculture? So that's a statewide discussion, the 2 acre-feet to the 0.25 acre-feet, and so that's a little bit different. So in talking about that, I'll talk about two more about the questions, and then I'll kind of give you my summary. There was a question by Ms. Lubitsch about if they, I think it was, or somebody, about if they have water and sewer, do we have to hook up? This would be there would be a water meter on Hot Springs, and it would be a service, so this wouldn't extend the water main any, so it wouldn't require hookups. And then the sewer would be in Hot Springs as well. So neither of those would impact hookups up there in any shape or form. The other question was about our wells going dry. I think that might have been a response to, well, if they don't drill wells and the city's going to drill wells, this area is not good for municipal wells. They've drilled test wells before. The wells that we have are closer to the east side of town, near the river, or the west side, the aquifer that comes off the mountain. Any additional water drill would come out of our existing wells in those areas. I think those kind of cover some of the details. And so let me give you my just general thought on water usage. The nice thing about being an engineer is that I don't necessarily care about building heights or zoning or usage or how high is a fence. I generally look at this type of usage from a water standpoint. And so 60,000 gallons a day over however many acres, any of those other usage that would encumber this amount of acreage in a tourist commercial, like a hotel or a casino bar with a hotel, any of those usages are gonna have this type of water usage. So as a whole, there isn't any one thing that 180 days is gonna say that's gonna break the water system over 30 days. My response would be the same for anything using 60,000 gallons a day here. That's a permitted use. So I think that's my summary as far as your consideration for that. And then I'll give you some more figures on the water system and that in the growth management, where we're specifically talking about that permit.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Monroy.
I have a process question regarding our decision tonight and how we're, okay, so what my question is I understand that for this piece, we're considering the 180 days. But why is the discussion about the impact on the usage happening after the decision? I mean, I understand we have to decide to grant the special use permit and then have the discussion about the impact on the water, but how does the usage not affect our decision on if 180 days is appropriate?
Let me just, okay, as far as engineering is concerned, it doesn't. So that's why the comments are the same for both, because your consideration in really the impact on the water system to go from 180-day stay to 30-day stay. If it's a 30-day stay RV park and they're full in July, that's our peak usage. That's the impact to the water system. Okay. So over the rest of the course of the year, it's not any different.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Sattler.
We also, in discussing, have to go back to the fact that the applicant had asked for 7 and 52 conditions, 52 to be eliminated, which is about the agreement being signed by the tenants that the airport is by and not to be allowed, for noise, et cetera, to make complaints to the airport. And so in essence, they haven't accepted the conditions at this point, correct?
That's right, and we're not at the point of discussing that portion of it yet. I mean, we can.
I just want to remind that has to be.
Right, and I would like to remind, let's see, who was it? It was Mr. Rowe, who had indicated that that was a requirement from the airport authority, and I would just say that, I would be inclined to agree with the airport authority that a condition be in place to require a acknowledgement of the airport being there. I have a question for Mr. Plemmel to address Mr. Antilla's comment about enforcement of the 28-day, 180-day. How does that happen?
Well, to the statement that we don't enforcement, I think that's not entirely true. As I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of older facilities that predate zoning in Carson City that are grandfathered and don't have to comply with any time limit. And then we do have the newer ones that do comply. And enforcement is difficult, and maybe they get around it by checking out and checking back in. So I would agree with that enforcement is, to the comment that enforcement is difficult on these, the length of stay for these types of things, I would agree with that.
Okay. But in effect, really, the enforcement, whether it's 28 days or 180 days, is
not any more difficult because of that.
There's no difference in the enforcement capability or how you would do it.
Well,
Go ahead,
excuse me.
Mr. Porter.
Wouldn't it be different if I showed up in my RV and I signed a lease with them for 90 days, and then 3 weeks later I left? So theoretically, I owe for 3 weeks of hotel motel tax, or somebody does. So we've by granting the 180-day special use permit, we've given them a carte blanche way to not pay any tax.
Well, I don't think somebody would pay 90 days if they're only going to stay 3 weeks. They would get by paying for 90 days and for leasing it for 90 days, they would get out of the tax. But I should say that if they do, for those that do stay per our code, they would be subject to transient occupancy tax for any
Stays of less than 28 days.
Rentals for less than 28 days.
But I'm saying as a matter of operations, when these people come in, they will sign this lease, and it says, okay, I'm going to be here for 3 months, and I'll pay you $1,250 a month. I'll due on the 1st. So if they leave, they haven't paid the owner those other 2 months. They haven't paid any occupancy tax because they haven't been charged. These people, if it's the same people, if they're driving a $1.5 million RV, they don't care about a 7% occupancy tax or room tax. They'll pay it if somebody will ask for it. But I'm saying that it looks like we're trying to create a situation where we don't even ask for it.
So I have to say that the Convention and Visitors Bureau collects the transient occupancy tax, so it's not the city. I'm not familiar with the mechanism of checking with the hotels and RV parks, as I'm not sure the mechanism how that works.
And then the other question or issue that was raised was the difference between a 6-foot fence and a 8-foot fence or sound wall. Has that been discussed with the applicant?
Nope, that was just brought up tonight.
Okay. Okay. So I think we.
Would you like me to, there were some others I noted,
Okay,
questions.
yes.
And I may not cover them all, but just based on my notes and just going down the list, there was the ownership change. And I actually just checked the assessor's records that still has it as the Western Insurance or whatever it was, that it's not. And perhaps at the end, the applicant can address that. I don't think it's secret, but in terms of a land use application, and I think it goes to another comment too, we're not doing business with owners in this case. This isn't a contract between the Planning Commission, the city, and the owner. It's a land use decision, and we really don't care who the owner is. We're making a decision based on zoning and land use. Another one I had was fire and sheriff. Yeah, certainly the fire not only reviewed it, but has a lot of conditions in here, as you've seen, regarding the project, conditions that they have to meet all fire codes. The sheriff is always aware of these applications and typically does not provide comments individually to them, but they're aware of these things, and his answer typically to me on a lot of project is we'll provide service to whatever happens. But not speaking for him, but he doesn't generally provide comments. And the Hollyway Gate, that came up earlier. So it's condition number 27 that says it shall be for emergency access only, and I would interpret that to mean and it says it's gated or by other means acceptable by fire, and I would take that to mean that it's not for construction access either, that when that street's built, it's for emergency access only and not a way in and out for construction traffic.
Sure. I was just going to throw out, because I've been in town quite a while, that besides the RV park, there was a hotel casino planned for that space and an auto mall.
And a golf course.
And a golf course, yes. That didn't, for whatever reason, didn't go in.
Chair, I have another question, and I don't mean to send us back on a tailspin, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the conversation. I don't understand the conversation about the occupancy tax. What's the issue, or is there one? If there's not one, we don't have to talk about it. But if there is an issue, I want to talk about it.
Okay, well, the issue is that if it were just a regular RV park, then the occupancy tax, the transient occupancy tax would be collected on stays that were less than 28 days.
And they wouldn't be allowed to stay.
It wouldn't be allowed to stay more than 28 days, so that all of the occupants would have to pay the occupancy tax. If they stay more than 30 days, or more than 28 days, then they are subject, or they would be exempt from the occupancy tax.
Okay. I see.
Okay?
I was trying to do quick research because I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, that.
Mike Bennett, Loomis and Associates again, for the record. I wanted to just touch on the tax and the access. First, the request for the additional stay was certainly not an attempt to avoid lodging tax, if you will. And I haven't cleared this with the owner yet, but I'm confident that he would be amenable to whatever, tax requirements land on a 28-day stay, just extending that through the time period. Because, like I said, it was certainly not his intent. And with regard to access, I would like to point out that the project originally did not have access to Hot Springs Road. The parcel was not contiguous with Hot Springs Road. During the negotiation of the property sale with who is now the past owner, Western Insurance Company, Mr. Shaheen negotiated with the owner of the Hot Springs to get access out to Hot Springs Road. So we did not have to impact the residents. To put more simply, we have no desire nor intent to go out through the neighboring properties for two reasons. One, because it doesn't make sense from a use standpoint. And two, we need to control access for an RV park. We don't want people coming in and out where we can't see them coming in and out. That gate would remain shut unless there is an event of an emergency. So like you said, for construction, we would have some access over there for construction, but everything is intended to come through Hot Springs and Hot Springs only.
Okay, thank you. You might want to stay there because I have a question that's going to be for Danny, for Mr. Rotter, but you may be involved in the discussion too. In the application materials that we received, there are one of the residents supplied some photos of I believe it was the 1997 storm event. I'm not sure where it is exactly right now, but there's a lot of water running through. That's 2005, actually. There's a lot of water running through there, and I'm curious as to, because I don't see it on the site plan. I don't even see that ditch showing up here, and you've got this little tiny retention pond at the base of it. What happens to that that through flow of water?
Well, yeah, to be very clear, that fill that has been placed in the past has generated a pretty significant drainage problem for those neighbors there. The water comes off the mountainside from the north. It hits that fill, it travels down that fill along toward the west, and it basically spills out of the ditch and through the community, through the residents. Our our plan, while it's not depicted on here because there's no grades, those spaces and that recreation area on the west side closest to the property would end up being depressed, so we could convey stormwater through there. The stormwater would end up being on the RV park side of the wall and the berm. So in effect, greatly, if not entirely, removing the flood risk or problems that the neighbors are having right now. We would convey that flow through the site ultimately into the NDOT drainage basin, and then the stormwater detention area that we have shown is just a reconfiguration of what's there today in accordance with Carson City stormwater management practices or standards. You know, we would size that so we didn't increase the peak runoff beyond what is existing today.
Okay, so you're gonna carry the off-site flows through the property as they go now, except that you'll better direct them through some sort of armored ditch and.
Yeah, yes, it would be on the RV park side of the wall, the property line, if you will. That landscape buffer recreation area, that is intended to be conveyance as well and storage ultimately.
Okay, thank you.
I just, still going back to what I brought up a little earlier, I mean, RVs are very nice, some of them are very large, but if summer weather, you're not apt to be outside most of the time. And I didn't see anything as far as your response when I asked about noise or outside stereos or whatever else from 200 RVs in there. You said probably not during the quiet hours, which are like 10 at night to 7 in the morning. Is there going to be any guidance or whatever as to what amount of noise can be coming out of a unit or whatever with it before something is done?
Yes, of course. I mean, it's difficult to police, you know, a decibel level, if you will, but certainly the guests that come into the RV park don't want to be disturbed by a loud neighbor, just like our neighbors don't want to be disturbed by a loud neighbor. So we would be policing that. And to go back to the noise, and I know you didn't ask me this, Mr. Saller, but going to the comment from the FAA or from the airport regarding noise, we get the concern. I just wanted to point out again with regards to noise, if I stay at the Grand Sierra in Reno and I hear a jet go by, I don't call the airport. I go to the hotel or I leave the hotel, and that's what we expect would happen on this as well.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah.
Mr. Owen.
Are you going to allow generators in there for the other spots?
No, all the sites have full hookups. So
all sites have full hookups.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, we have to remember that we are considering the 180 days versus the 30 days.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and you know, is there any additional impact from 180 days? And
Mr. Chairman, may I ask how many RV parks are in Carson City?
I don't know that it's relevant to the discussion, and.
Well, it is because the amount of time that they're allowed.
I think, can I get a question from the district attorney's office? Can we allow a additional comment from the public?
Did you bring it back?
Yes, we did close the public hearing.
You can reopen it again. You have nobody's made a motion.
Okay.
So you can actually reopen it. And also for your consideration, there's a question as to whether the occupancy tax or lodging tax only applies to rooms. So I'm trying to find a definition for rooms for your consideration before you actually vote on this.
Okay, actually, I think that the section in the code says RV parks are included in the transient occupancy tax.
But the exclusion, on the part of the exclusion. So I'll see if I can find anything.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Just trying to figure out how to apply it to stays, RV parks
Right.
longer.
Okay. All right. We'll reopen the public hearing, and we'll give Mr. Lubitch an opportunity. 3 more minutes, please.
This is
Yeah, I just asked a question.
You just had one question of the,
Well, two, if I could. I promise, just two. Then it's my turn. John Lubitsch spoke earlier. My question is, how many RV parks do we currently have? I know of two. The one at 395 and Hot Springs behind the auto body stop. The one at the south end of town by Costco. Are there any more? And what are the requirements for them? And how is this going to turn around and apply to them if you do change this to 180 days? That's my first question. I can tell you as a deputy sheriff here for 20 years, in and out of those parks, dumps. Okay. Second question I had to do with grant assurance from the airport. The airport has certain grants, and there's grant assurances. And this is from Yvonne Weaver, who used to be the airport manager. She told me that there are grant assurances currently in place that will not allow any kind of anything on that property. Anything that could be possibly put on it could mean a fine to the city or the possibility of that grant being recalled by the FAA. That's it. Thank you.
thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Yes.
My name's Arden Kelly. I live 980 Mark Way. Can you hear me?
No, please say that again after you push the button and get the red light on.
There you go.
My name is Arden Kelly. I live on 980 Mark Way. I just want to make a couple of comments. I get up in the morning and go get my newspaper. And when I do, I look directly to the east to see the sun coming up over Como, if you know what Como is. The hill, the mountain over there. Is this going to really be nice to be able there and see that wall along there for a quarter of a mile? And why is this in a residential area? I don't know who's owned the damn thing that way. You know, right there at that street or the property line, everything's owned up to the west is 1.25 acres minimum. So we're going to put 200 and some mobiles up there next door to it. And we're talking about the fire truck going down Holly. Who's going to open the gate for him? How's he going to get across the ditch? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, unless we're going to have new discussion. Go ahead, Mr. Cheat.
All right. The wall, there should be a sound wall. We were all back here. We would like to see that. And do you guys put a RV park? This all went down years ago at the bottom of Spooner, and now that's getting full-time residential. And of course, the one's grandfathered in over on North Carson. So these things 20 years from now are not going to be what we're discussing now. We got to keep that in mind. And hopefully my family's still living in my house 20 years from now. That's what I'm looking at, you know? But we needed to get a sound wall in there for sure. Thank you. I'll get out of your hair.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Ware.
Phil Ware again. I just wanted to say I think a lot of, I guess the representatives from Lumos, a lot of their theories, if you will, are projections, their pro formas, in terms of ideas. I realize we don't have a feasibility test here, but I just feel like a lot of their answers are, for lack of a better expression, pie in the sky. Like, we're targeting this ultra high-end market, and there's no discussion about how you're going to pull that off and who you're going to turn away at the gate, and just how is that going to work. And furthermore, we don't know what management company Mr. Shaheen might contract with, or any of that stuff. So bottom line, I agree with the gentleman who just spoke. You know, this is pie in the sky, and we need, there's a whole lot of things that haven't been said in the 3 to 6 minutes we've been allocated, depending on how many times we've been up here. So that's it for me. I just would like to see some reception on y'all's part relative to a continuance and continuing discussions with perhaps the developer and the commissioners as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so I was able to confirm that they would be exempt. So room applies to them, and they would be exempt because they're more than the 28 days.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I guess at this point, I'd like to ask the applicant if they would be agreeable to extending this discussion to allow for some meetings with the local residents. Other developers have done that in the past, and
Or the airport authority.
as well, you know, the residents as well as the airport authority, because there seems to be issues that we can't really address here.
Our intention is to be good neighbors. I made the point earlier of our efforts to change the boundary lines. We had access straight out to Hot Springs. Before even bringing the project to the city for review, we had the property, or we already had a berm and the wall on the westerly boundary to block views. And again, an attempt to be a good neighbor. We've pulled allowed uses away from that westerly property line, and we did have some recreation things over there at one point, and we've moved them more to the center of the development. With regards to a continuance, this project is a permitted project. What we're asking for is a change in the length of stay. The intent for the project for the owner is to continue on to design and ultimately apply for a building permit, grading permit in the next few months.
Okay, thank you. Just for the sake of explaining to the audience, under state law, the city is required to consider applications within a particular time period, absent a agreement by the property owner to continue discussion. As you've just heard, the property owner is not willing to do that, and therefore we are required by state law to consider this either yay or nay. But we have to make a decision this evening, and then it has to go to actually it's a special use permit, so it doesn't go to the Board of Supervisors unless our decision is appealed. So at this point, I will ask if there's any other public comment. If not, we'll close the public hearing portion. Okay, looks like we have one more comment.
Tammy Lubitsch again. I do understand that this is, whether it's 180 days or 30 days. I am definitely opposed to the 180 days. I'm opposed to the whole plan. But I don't want somebody in all those big rigs and everything. I moved here, and where I've lived there 32 years in quiet. I've put up with the freeway. I've put up with a lot of stuff. My house was one of them that got majorly flooded because of the land to the east, because of what they did and the way they did the freeway. I don't want this project there, but I definitely don't want people staying there for 180 days, turning around and coming back and making it a permanent home.
Thank you. Mr. Plemmel, I'm going to close the public hearing, and then we'll have discussion with staff and the commission. The public hearing portion is closed, and we will bring it back to the commission for discussion. Mr. Plamo.
So some of the comments brought up some things, questioned before about the zoning and how long it's been there, and and it's tourist commercial, and it has been a long time. And certainly, and it relates to past projects that have been requested there. And I think in the past so the mobile home park, a residential project was denied there because it was under the flight path. There's been commercial uses, they mentioned some of the other uses, but the fact is that it is private property. It was not purchased by the airport and so the zoning of that has actually been a real kind of, I'll call it a problem spot. We know there's an airport there, and we know there's single-family residences here, and what kind of uses belong under an airplane path, and a residential use has been denied. So maybe some industrial uses might be a more appropriate zoning for it that are low. Certainly not a high-rise hotel. So we have struggled with that over the years, and looking at when we went through the master plan amendment in 2006, and so I understand the problem there, but I don't know what the right answer is if it's industrial, which may be more have a whole another realm of impacts to adjacent neighbors. The airport didn't want residences. This is a commercial use. I don't know. It's a tough question as far as that goes. Just a couple more things. The I don't know. The fire truck they're going to build the access, and I say this quite seriously, that the fire department has the key, but they have told me if they don't have a key, they're going to go through the gate anyway with the big truck. And I think that was, I think that's what I wanted to make comment on the zoning.
Okay, and because it is, regardless of what the ideal use of that property would be, because it is currently zoned, in order to change that, the owner would have to come forward with a request to rezone it to some other, to allow other types of uses. So, Ms. Monroy.
So I'd like to talk about the 180 days. So I think where I'm sitting right now is, so my concern is that they would be exempt from paying the transient occupancy tax, and I don't know if as a condition we can say, but you also have to pay the transient. But my other question is, so, and I imagine you can't do that because you probably have to change state law or city code, whatever. But so my other question is, it sounds to me like the 28-day enforcement is not happening in some parks. We don't know, but it sounds like it's hard to enforce. But are those people that are staying at a park for 28 days or longer paying the resident or the transient occupancy tax if they're there longer?
I think that the way the code is written, and the district attorney can research this, but I think the way the code is written is that if there is a lease, if they pay for 28 days or longer at the beginning of their occupancy, then they are exempt. So, but if it's limited to 28 days, if the stay is limited to 28 days, then they would have to pay the occupancy tax.
And if they left and came back, they paid it.
Yes. Yeah.
That just doesn't seem. I'm struggling with that piece of it. And I know that fairs are for fun, but that doesn't seem fair or right. So.
I would have a question. Did the Visitors Bureau have a chance to review this? I mean, it seems to have it impacts them considerably because they are the ones who collect and utilize the occupancy tax.
Yeah, they're not, I don't think we've asked them for comment on this application specifically. They're not typically asked, and we have not asked them on this one specifically.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Borders.
We're here discussing this special use permit. If it's denied, they've indicated that they want to move forward anyway, which is fine. However, there are two conditions in the conditions that staff has said that they're not willing to back off of. So, however we decide to come down on the occupancy tax to the 30 or the 180-day cycle, there's still the issue of the conditions and whether or not, if they don't accept our recommendations or the staff's recommendations, then they're dead in the water anyway.
I'm not positive of that. Mr. Plemmel, can the staff apply those same 52 conditions? If we were to deny the 180 days and they wanted to go ahead with just the RV park, could you apply those same 52 conditions based upon the staff review?
No, we would apply, there are many, as I said, there are many conditions that are per code that we would apply, but there's some discretionary conditions in here, like basic fire requirements would still apply, conditions related to the design of a RV park would still apply, but there are a few discretionary requirements in here that we could not apply for a less than 30-day stay.
Would that include the requirement that they sign the waiver?
Yeah, number 7, number 52.
No, number 7 is not, well, number 52 is the waiver. Number 52 is the waiver. I think so. I think they're still in the airport review area that's subject to airport requirements. That would probably be a condition based on an airport requirement. On number 7, number 7 wouldn't be enforced as written because it's not required to provide those other amenities. And you said we're opposed to it, and I wouldn't necessarily say that of changing it. So there's a number. I mean, I think the amenities are up to you as part of this extended stay thing, and that's a consideration you should make. But as far as the minimum standards for an RV park, there are some requirements in that section to keep in there, as Mr. Bennett suggested. I think he made it's whoever made that suggestion. That should stay in there, but not necessarily the amenities.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that goes back, if that goes back to the whole smell test, if their only objections to this permit were 7 and 52, and we turn it down, then we've in effect eliminated 7 and 52 from their, well, 52 maybe, 7's not, okay. So, all right.
The airport could impose that requirement, that they have to sign a waiver. Regardless of whether we approve this permit or not. My biggest concern is that I would really like to have heard from the Visitors Bureau, since this is, the issue of the tax is a pretty big issue, I think.
Well, so yeah, I'm talking on the side here. But does that relate, maybe it relates to the findings, but I would say maybe the reason we don't ask them to comment is we're not looking for advocates for the project necessarily, which they may be.
Maybe, but.
Or not. So, I mean, do they have comments relevant to the findings for a special use permit? So I think that's why. So I don't know necessarily that what the Convention of Visitors opinion is our job to elicit to you one way or another on their thoughts on a project. I think, they, like anybody else in the public, they have knowledge of these items coming before the Planning Commission. So I just want to make sure that it's not, I want you to know why we're not soliciting comments from somebody that may be an advocate.
Okay, well, Mr. Sattler.
I'm not comfortable going forward with this unless 52 remains. That's, for me, it's 52 needs to stay there.
I agree. Elise Monroy, for the record, while you might not be able to enforce someone from picking up the phone and calling, it's still the right thing to do. To say that you're going to be here for 6 months and you're going to be here in Plains every morning. So we're telling you now, so you don't call the airport's phone every other day to complain.
But I think what I heard Mr. Plumell say is that regardless of whether or not we approve the special use permit, if they go ahead with just the RV park, the airport authority could require that disclosure in there. So I mean.
But we can require it.
We can require it also if we decide to, if we vote to approve the permit, then we can require that 52 stay there. Green.
Trying to formulate my thought. Okay, so my struggle with this is 188 days, 6 months. We talk about how it's hard to enforce and how we don't like it, but there's a lot of it in Carson. And as a commission, one of our only things we can do is effectively make change. And to change that is to say no sometimes. Maybe we can't enforce it, but it doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't collect the taxes and that people shouldn't live here full-time. It should be an RV park for 28 days. So as of right now, I'm a nay so far.
But we have to say no per the findings.
True, and the findings for me would be, yeah, number 2 is hard for me, and just
And number 3 is.
Just the fact that there's still so many things that seem left undone, and the phasing that they want to accelerate, and I'm just not comfortable with this packet as an entirety.
Well,
Mr. Owen.
Yeah, one question is, okay, 6 months, maybe they don't like that. What about 3 months? 2 months, 5 months? Does it matter? Are we stuck on this 28 days?
Well, the 28 days is the taxing period.
Okay, no, I understand that.
If you go beyond the 28 days, then the tax doesn't apply.
I'm pretty much anti-tax, and it's just a grab of money anyway, so I could care less about that part. So, just to put it out there. So we wouldn't consider any other time frame as being appropriate. We're just, it's 28 days or we don't care.
Well, at 28 days, they don't have to come in for us.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even be here at 28 days. So if we deny the 6 months, it would revert back to the 28-day, and they can appeal it to the supervisors.
Correct.
I don't have an answer for you.
I just have a problem with high density at the end of a runway, more than anything.
Yeah. Well, I think that if anybody wants to consider a denial of the permit, then we have to be able to give a reason based upon the inability to make one or more of the findings. I think we could do it. I'm not sure that we can sit here and, in 5 minutes come up with it.
My difficulty would be with number 2, as far as the peaceful enjoyment of surrounding properties or the general neighborhood. Integrity adjoining neighborhood, including improvements, modifications on site, public right-of-way.
So, not trying to argue, I just want to make sure we're having a good conversation. the peaceful enjoyment for the surrounding neighborhood is going to be disrupted whether or not there's someone there for 30 days or 180 days, and that's what we have to consider.
So now I'm arguing with myself. Because if we do a special use permit, it does give us more control to put some things in here if they're agreeable. So I'm having a hard time in my brain right now. Like I said, my fear is the extended length of stay, whether or not we can do anything about that or not. Not so much the taxes, just people making it their primary residence is my bigger problem. The high density at the end of an airport, especially if there's been incidences there before. But I don't know if there's much we can do if we approve it. That, much more control we can have over it, other than you have to have somebody sign a sheet that says it's going to be loud.
But there can also be some questions with number 3, with little or no detrimental effect for vehicular traffic. I mean, you're putting a whole lot of more vehicles on Gonai, Hot Springs, and other roads up there.
Well, they would have to meet the city standards for traffic. They would have to do the traffic analysis, and if they couldn't meet it, then they wouldn't be able to do the project at the same extent that they are proposing.
Can I respond to Commissioner Green's kind of comment? Okay. So if I hear what you're saying is that if we approve the special use permit, we have these conditions, these controls, and that makes you comfortable. More comfortable than, yeah. So, but you have concerns regarding issues like the high density at the end of a runway, which would have been allowed anyways, because it's allowed here. But your first issue is, how do you keep someone from making this a primary residence? So is there a condition or a control that we can put on the special use permit that would prevent that? Make this becoming a primary residence?
Well, they would have to comply with city ordinances. And the city ordinances say that you can't stay for, in this case, it would be 180 days. So that would be the only control that we could put on it, and we would have to rely on the enforcement capacity of the city to enforce that.
Which is already stressed and maybe not. Okay. All right.
But like Commissioner Owens said, we couldn't change it to 90 days or 60 days.
Well, what would?
I don't know.
I'm like, could we?
What would you gain?
The applicant could.
But that doesn't get at what the problem is.
Well,
The problem is that you're going to have someone re-upping after 90 days instead of 180 days.
That's a part you're going to have to fight forever anyway. The question is, what's the motivation for driving this special use permit, which we do not know. We've made some guesses. They're not being forthright. So what's the drive? They can do everything they want to do except stay more than 28 days without moving their guests in this RV park without going through all this. So why are we going through all this? And that's what I can't get my hand around.
Yeah, because, my parents were the RVers for many, many, many years. A lot of the RV parks have a 2-week maximum. You have to be out at the end of 2 weeks, and you can't come back for 2 weeks.
Well, the solution is to condo the whole damn thing. There are RV park condos, and you can buy your share, you can timeshare it, you can do all these things for these high-class people. I know my folks RV'd for 20 years, but I don't know what the motivation is, and I don't feel comfortable with it, and I don't know how to get it out of anybody.
At one point, which again, like Monica just said, I might be arguing with myself, but the only plane crash in my previously was not in the flight path. It was going the opposite direction where they take off, and it actually went sideways onto College Parkway.
Yeah.
Pardon? What do you mean that's not correct? It didn't go on College Parkway?
There was one.
They're saying it's a different.
Oh, well,
Okay,
that's
no,
the.
no, let's, whoa,
Not with the public.
yeah.
Okay. I was just referring to the
Yeah.
one that I remember.
Okay.
The doctor.
Yeah,
Okay.
the doctor, exactly.
Okay.
Didn't even stay in that flight path.
Okay, we're considering 180 days as opposed to 28 days.
Right.
And whether or not an airplane crashes at 28 days or 170 days really is irrelevant. I think that we've probably had enough discussion, and people have decided how they're going to go on this, so I'll entertain a motion either way.
I will move to approve.
Go ahead.
Elise Monroy, for the record. I move to approve SUP 16160, a request for a special use permit to allow an extended stay, maximum 180-day, recreational vehicle resort on property zoned tourist commercial located at 1440 Old Hot Springs Road, APN 008-123-40, based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
Yeah, all the conditions.
Including 7 and 52.
Right. Well, if they don't accept it, then they don't get the permit. Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second it so we can vote on it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
You can allow for additional discussion
We can,
after a second.
yes. I
remind you.
Well, I had some discussion.
Okay.
But if you have some discussion.
go ahead.
Okay, I tend to be not comfortable with the project itself, but I believe that, that given that I haven't heard an argument to say that that having 180 days is substantially different than the 28 days. And because they can do the 28 days without any permit from special use permit, I feel like I would have to vote in the affirmative on approval of this project.
So for discussion's sake, I 100% agree with the chair. I'm really struggling with the fact that the 30 days and the 180 days doesn't really change the project. We might be uncomfortable with the project, but it didn't even have to come to us. We could have not had this wonderful discussion if it was 30 days. It would have been the same project. I also think that if the 28 days was actually being enforced to other places, I would maybe be feeling a little different about this, but it's not. So we have people who are possibly staying in these types of facilities longer than 28 days already. It's just not being enforced. So there's that. But I also think beyond that, we know that we don't know, but I would imagine there's RVers, there's folks that as they're planning their snowbird trips or their summer trips, they're looking for extended places to stay. And I think this could be an opportunity to drive tourism to Carson City in northern Nevada. There's really great things to see here. And if we can have a project like this that can help drive people here who are looking for that, then that's a good thing. We want that. But again, we have to consider the 28 days and the 180 days. And I didn't really hear anything tonight as to why 180 days is bad versus the 28 days. So that's where I'm at.
I still reiterate, I still have problems with finding number 2 as far as not affecting the surrounding neighborhoods. I've got problems with that.
But is that the park itself, or is that the 180 days? Because we're only considering the 180 days. What impact does the...
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and to that, I think, and to that, I still think I am on the side of just because it's not being enforced, it doesn't mean it shouldn't be. And so we can't ignore that.
We don't really know that it's not.
Correct. We don't really know that it's not being enforced. And for me, it's just too long for an RV park. I've done some RVing, not extensively by any means, but I'm just not comfortable with it. I'm having a hard time making all the findings. So I'm still having a hard time.
Could we ask of the applicant or whatever if they would consider a sound wall on that west end? Is against a 6-foot fence? Just to. You
Is
can't-
someone going to get louder if they've been there for 128 days?
No,
Or
that's
180
not what- That's not what
days?
I'm bringing
Well,
up.
but it is. I mean, it is an issue, because if they just do the 28-day RV park, they don't
No,
have to.
I
put that
understand.
on.
I'm just asking if they might consider, since that was something we heard several times.
There's a lot of things about the project itself I don't like. I don't like the setback. I don't like the number of units that are going to be there, but that's just me complaining about the project, and that's not what we're talking about.
I understand that.
Yeah, I think they should have a bigger buffer between the neighborhoods.
Mr. Chair, and just as you're considering this matter, if you can just make sure that you have the findings for your vote one way or another, just for a clear record in case there's any appeals.
Thank you for that. Okay. Any other? I don't feel that it's appropriate to open it up again to ask the
No, that's
applicant
fine.
to, they didn't volunteer it at the time when it was brought up, and,
They haven't volunteered.
yeah. Okay, so at this point, I will ask, if there's no further discussion, I would call for the vote. All those, then the motion is to approve the project with the findings contained in the staff report, and subject to the 64 conditions contained in the staff report. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Nay.
All those opposed signify by saying no.
Nay.
Harry said aye.
Oh, okay. So we have 5-1, motion passes. So now we move on to the,
Let me say under
To the
this,
water
while we're
use.
still on the special use permit item, that anybody that was here participated in this or wrote a letter regarding this item may appeal to the Board of this is the final decision. Unless appealed, and anybody who participated with the letter here tonight can appeal, as long as that appeal is done within 10 days of this meeting, which is usually 11 or 12 days. It's the Monday following the weekend that the 10th day falls in. Contact the Planning Division office for information on how to submit an appeal if you so choose to do so. It's 10 calendar days, which, so an appeal of this item tonight would have to be submitted by Monday, December 12th. I don't have the, yeah, we give you the information. Contact the Planning Division, we'll give you the information of what's required. I think $250 is the appeal fee. I think that's right.
okay, at this point, we will recess for 10 minutes to give people a chance to get up and stretch. Bio break. open the meeting. We will recess as the Planning Commission and come to order as the Growth Management Commission. Madam Secretary, could you call the roll, please?
Chairperson Eswine.
Here.
Vice Chair Sattler.
Bill President.
Commissioner Borders.
Yes.
Commissioner Green. Here. Commissioner Monroy. Here. Commissioner Owens.
Yo.
Commissioner Salerno. A quorum still present.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 2 under the Growth Management Commission is public comment. Public is invited to, at this time, to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Growth Management Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the Growth Management Commission? Okay, moving on for possible action. Approval of the minutes from May 25th, 2016.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written. Commissioner Sattler.
We have a motion
No, second.
and a second by Ms. Green. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, entertain a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. 2 abstentions. I was not present at the meeting, and Mr. Borders was not a member of the commission at that time. Okay, moving on to item number 4, which is public hearing matters. We have one item, which is GM-16-161 for possible action to consider a request for a growth management review from Roger Shaheen, agent, Loomis and Associates, property owner, Western Insurance Company, to allow for average daily water usage greater than 15,000 gallons per day on property zone tourist commercial located at 1400 Hot Springs Road, APN 008-123-40. Mr. Plemmel.
I'm going to introduce this and then turn it over to City Engineer Danny Rotter to discuss the water usage in particular. As I noted with the previous item that was just approved, any commercial or industrial use, which this is considered, is not a residential use. Residential uses are regulated growth management by the number of units. Commercial uses are regulated through average daily water usage. And the current threshold as adopted by the Board of Supervisors for this year is 15,000 gallons a day average daily water usage, above which Growth Management Commission review is required. Now that threshold, that's not a limit that you can't use that much. Obviously, if, as I mentioned, restaurants generally fall under that, but 10 restaurants certainly use way more than that. So it's really related to the size in any one location of a development, at which point engineering looks at it to make sure they have the water capacity to that area. And also it's also another checkpoint in our growth management system to ensure that in the big picture, in the long run, we're not approving too many things that are exceeding the water capacity of the city. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Danny to talk about the water capacity of the city.
Danny Rotter, Public Works. I see some yawns up there. I'm yawning myself. I'll try and not bore you too much about water. I've snagged the slides, so you're going to see them very familiar from the Vintage Commission meeting, and this one's specifically right out of the Growth Management report. So in summary, on an annual average, we have a little over 18,000 acre feet. And we withhold, per the state engineer, anything that is a final map, or it's mainly a residential use where we're creating more parcels, and basically in order to do that, the state engineer says, well, you need to allocate that water rights. In a commercial use like this, we wouldn't add that to that allocation because the rest of the capacity is kind of a first come, first serve, and that's why this growth management is put into place so that we get another set of eyes on this to make sure we can serve it. It wouldn't put us over capacity. We're not going to put ourselves in a bad spot. So basically with our usage projection, we still have a balance of 5,400 acre feet. And then just to put this in perspective, again, the 92 balance was below 2,000 acre feet. The growth management report, I give a kind of a broad overview of the basins, and when I talk about perennial yield, we have the 3 groundwater basins that we withdraw from. The Eagle Valley Basin, the perennial yield is about 8,000 acre feet, but we can go up to just below 12,000 acre feet for 3 years. So that top line there. Dayton Valley is more influenced by the Carson River, and then Carson Valley, the yield is pretty great, and the usage is quite below there. As I've talked before, the biggest impact to our water system is that max day. So if we use the same water usage every day, if they use 60,000 gallons a day, all day, every day, that wouldn't be as much of an impact as actually when in July, when they've got irrigation on and RVs, that is going to be a higher peak. So right now I've got 3 bars: green, yellow, red, good year, good water year, wet, average, and drought. And so the drought is just under 25 million gallons a day. The 2015 demands, and I should update this, is just over, for 2016, is just over 21 million gallons a day. So there's about a 3 to 4 million gallons a day max day that we have. As far as the ability to treat that, you've seen this before, we're permitted for 6.9. Just a reminder, at 85% of that, 5.86, we have to have expansion plans ready. We're between 4 and 4.2 million gallons a day. So blue is where we're at over the last 6 years. Orange is we got to have a plan, and 6 is you're over your permit. These are projecting 0.25%, 0.5%, and 1% growth. Each of those blocks is 5 years, so that's a 30-year window right there that you see. So that's kind of my summary is why we're recommending approval. It's any usage on this site is going to have this amount of usage, and so that's the summary. I'll answer any questions, and I won't bore you more about water.
Any questions for Mr. Rotter?
Yeah.
Mr. Owen.
I have a question that was brought up earlier, but they're going to have 200 and some odd spaces. Is that considered in our growth management as far as the number of units we're allowed every year? Or is that outside that?
Right, no, it's directly to the question, it does not count as residential units. It doesn't count towards the annual allocation of residential units. It's regulated through just the water usage.
Any other questions?
Like a hotel room, same as a hotel.
Okay, Ms. Green.
So you speak of this stuff in water permitted. Is that actual water? I'm very confused because then I hear things in the community like we're buying water from Minden, or like it's not actual water, and I don't understand. So can you please clarify that for me?
Yeah, and as precise and short as I can. We could talk for hours, but our total permitted rights is actually over 20,000 acre feet. Sometimes you'll hear people call that paper rights, meaning there's a paper in the state engineer's office that says we can withdraw that amount of water from the ground. However, we've chosen to go with the usable water rights. So that's the 18,000 number. And then just to clarify any rumors, the water coming out of the Minden wells is our water. We entered into an agreement so that we didn't have to drill our own wells in the Carson Valley. They already have wells. So we entered into a cost savings agreement that they pump the water and deliver it to us on an operational basis, but that's our water. So
We could have drilled wells in Douglas County.
that's the tough part, is if we would have said we're going to go drill wells in Douglas County, they would have said, okay, well, where's your lease fee? Or you can't do it there, you got to buy property, or any number of different things. So
But the main reason we get the water from Douglas County was to save, because of the arsenic levels, we can blend it, and it saves us having to put in a very expensive plant to take care of the arsenic, that the government keeps dropping the levels.
That's correct. And also the decision, so I'll just give you one more quick overview, is that we could have kept all the water that we already had in our basins and treated it. It was water we already had on the books. The water we bought from Minden was new water. So we added water to our portfolio, and we didn't build a treatment plant. So we killed two birds with one stone, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay.
As long as the bird's not floating in.
Any other questions for Mr. Rotter? Okay. I see that the applicant is here. Are there conditions on this? Yes, sir. You've read the staff report. There are 14 conditions attached to it. Are you agreeable to those conditions?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Do you have anything to add?
I do, and I will be brief as well. I just want to point out that in going through this exercise of calculating the water use, we looked at max day, and that's really the numbers that you see there. AWWA provides some guidance of between 75 and 150 gallons per day per RV space. We looked at similar, I should say we looked at water use for similar parks around Carson City, and we determined that they were using about 150 gallons per space per day. So we applied that factor to this. This is going to be a newer development. It's going to have water-saving fixtures and so on. Plus, understand that this is a calculation based on an RV park that is at capacity all the time. Reality is we're not going to be at capacity all the time. We wish we were, but we probably won't be.
And you'll also be doing xeriscape landscaping?
Yes.
So
I don't want to call it xeriscape, but we'll be doing, low water use planting materials that comply with city code, yes.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Anybody from the public wish to address this item? Okay. We'll bring it back.
Question for legal counsel. Since I voted no on the previous one, would it be in, obviously you made all the findings. I don't have any reason to vote no on this one, but should I, as in, not for the project? That's my question.
So they may do the same use, but under the 28-day, let's just say, for example, they do the same use as 28-day. This is growth management. So I would treat it separate. I would treat this separate and look at the findings separately, because they may be using that water for a use that for that same use that doesn't need that special use permit. Does that make sense?
And I would agree with that analysis.
Thank you.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion. I move to approve GM-16-161, a request from Growth Management approval for applicant Roger Shaheen to allow daily water usage above 15,000 gallons per day for a recreational vehicle resort facility on property zoned tourist commercial located at 1400 Old Hot Springs Road, APN 008-123-40, subject to the conditions of approval outlined in the staff report.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Mr. Borders. Any further discussion on this item? All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? We have a motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And that was the last of the public hearing items for the Growth Management Commission. We will open it up again to public comment. Anyone wishing to address the Growth Management Commission? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the Growth Management Commission.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the Growth Management Commission.
Second?
I will second that.
Second by Mr. Owen. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We will reconvene as the Planning Commission. We have a master plan amendment application or actually, we have two of them. And at this point, I'd like to recommend that we continue this item until our December meeting so that we don't stay past 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I was suggesting certainly the master plan annual report and talking to the chair during the break that we want to have some discussion during that. It's going to be a shorter agenda in December.
Yeah.
I'm not taking the report to the Board of Supervisors till January anyway, so I was going to take that one. I think it's okay to continue this one, although we could probably get through this one pretty quick.
Yeah.
You do this in 5?
There's no rush on it. You've already gone over the deadline that the state set anyway, so.
Do you want to continue to date certain?
Pardon me?
Are you continuing to date certain?
Yes, to the December meeting. I would, do we need a motion to continue? Okay,
You can do it as chair.
okay. So we'll hold on to those portions of it. And then, I guess, is there anything significance that the staff would like to report on?
Yeah, for anybody staying up and watching this on Thursday, on December 1st, at the Board of Supervisors meeting is the Board of, I'm sorry, yeah, she said it may. On the December 1st, the Board of Supervisors meeting starting at 2 is the vintage tentative planned unit development and master plan amendment that was before the Planning Commission meeting back in September. I have some notes here I'm looking for, sorry, just real quick. There was an appeal of the casino special use permit was appealed and upheld at the Board of Supervisors by a vote of 2-0 after 3 recusals. And then next month, we're going to bring to you a moratorium for recreational marijuana facilities like we did. It's a whole placeholder until we can develop regulations. And we have a special use permit for storage container, special use permit for residential and retail, commercial, and NI, and a zoning code amendment regarding an off-premise sign, and we'll bring the master plan annual report to you then also. Any other master plan amendment?
Thank you. Any commissioners have anything they would like to comment on? Okay.
Will the meeting be earlier or whatever for December?
Not only, so I'll have to send emails out to remind everybody, but not only is it earlier, it's December 21st, so it's before Christmas holidays. It's also earlier in the day, it's at 1 o'clock. 1 or 1:30 in the afternoon. 1 or 1:30 in the afternoon. 1 o'clock, and I think that's because the airport authority has the meeting, has the room and the evening, so we'll have to keep it under 4 hours.
We will. Guaranteed. Okay, a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute, public comment. Anyone from the public? Okay,
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
all those in favor, signify. Aye. Meeting is adjourned.